Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So, a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Michael Kahn, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bose Nail, Samson, Maris, Mobile Mac 777, Neo the One, Lost Cat FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, theflatearthchannel.com, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, and David Wayne Foster. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I'll hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
But I did find out where it came from. And it's funny when you think about it. The old Western days, there was a lice problem. So the Cowboys never put their hat on the bed because of lice.
That's very, very nice to know.
Morning, Ken.
Morning. We're still on the hat.
Yeah, well, I know it gets under Nathan's skin, so I got to keep bringing it up.
Well, at least it had
Alright,
some rim velocity.
I looked up that word. I managed to find it. Doesn't seem pleasant. I had all my wisdom teeth taken out though when I was younger.
Well, why did they call it the wisdom tooth?
I don't know, because it's not wise. It comes in and it destroys your whole mouth. My wife's whole face is swollen, but she had to get clearance from her doctor first before they extracted it because she has mitral valve. Thing with the heart where it's pumping the wrong way. I don't know.
Is it because they come in when you're older and wiser?
I don't know. I heard like people in like the truther movement before when I used to look up at FE videos mention it a few times sometimes. Like there might be something to it, but I just heard things, I guess.
Let me chew on that for a while, Ratches.
How about it's plain and simple? They come out later in your life. And when they say you're wise, it's when you're later in your life. So they named it the wisdom tooth.
Come on, Neil, that's too simple.
You know, like flat is not curved and curved is not flat. Earth is not spinning, we're stationary. You know, the same old routine.
Or we're stationary, but really we're spinning.
Yeah, but we're stationary.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
You're moving, but you don't feel it, Shay.
Speaking of teeth, I had a teeth cleaning like 2 days ago, and while I was sitting getting my cleaning, they were talking about that space thing. What do you call it? That guy that plans to send people by that airplane thingy into space.
Richard Branson. Richard Branson from Virgin Atlantic.
Yeah. That guy. He was on, and they're all talking on the news, and I got that Forrest Gump guy. What's his name? He's on the
Tom
list to
Hanks.
go, and Tom Hanks here. And I'm like, oh my goodness, because I don't watch
Yeah, they're
TV,
sending
right? I
all
only watch TV when
they're
I'm up and
sending all the
about, and when I see
pedophiles.
this, what's that?
They're sending all the pedophiles to space.
I I don't know that. I'm not the judge. But all I'm knowing
But
is because I don't watch TV and stuff like this, and when I see this stuff, it's so real that this stuff is out there and it's considered normal, and it was just kind of bizarre just to see
I
normally
saw
not
it.
seeing it, right?
I saw it on the YouTube. It was a YouTube clip where
Oh.
it was very dramatic too, with him being the last person revealed as being on the maiden voyage, and they'd taken these pictures and everything else. So supposedly, it's going to happen on the 11th of this month, right?
Oh.
So
Hey, the funny thing is, I heard them talking about it on the sports show I listened to, and the guy said, "Well, it's a lot easier to go to space than it is to dig to the center of the Earth," because they were talking about apocalyptic movies, and 2012 came up. So they just got into how much easier it is to go to space than it is to dig to the center of the Earth. I was like, oh my gosh.
the show must go on.
That's kind of like we know more about space than what's in the depths of the ocean, kind of thing. It
Yeah.
kind of seems backwards in a sense. Like how can that be, kind of thing?
Because if I say I know more about Narnia than I do about the depths of the oceans, that would be accurate. Because if the place is invented and not real place, that's governed entirely by rules of pseudo mechanics, then you can know everything there is to know about it. Because it's a place that you've invented. So the outer space, which I don't know, I don't follow Richard Branson, I've got no desire to get involved with this nonsense. If he's claiming to take them to space, he's a liar. Because space is fake. If the sky was a vacuum, the gas we breathe would fill the space. So he's not going to be taking them to space. That notion, that place, that region isn't real. So he's not taking them to space if he's claiming to. If he says maybe words to the effect of, I'm taking them to the edge of space, just for the sake of argument, well, bit of plausible deniability in there. But he's not doing that either, because it'd be akin to saying I'm going to take you to the edge of Narnia and then showing you my wardrobe. Yeah? So, bit more deniability if he says I'm going to the edge of space. On the other hand, he might just be absolutely truthful about it and saying I'm going to take you really high as we can go. Okay? Well, the technology that what I have looked into is what technology he's been using, which has been around since the 50s. Drop technology, where you take a craft up with a plane and then drop it, and it carries on its journey up higher. That's what Richard Branson was planning to do when I last looked at it. Well, that's very, very old technology. It's not like it's anything new. And he might get very high with it. You know, the aerodynamics change quite severely when you go up higher. So they have to have a different craft to get you the first journey through the nice thick atmosphere with all the lift that it provides with big wings. Then they change craft, drop that, it goes a bit higher, and then it'll come back down again. Well, the chances are you'll get to go up and see what the guys before NASA existed got to see when they went really, really, really high too. And I'm sure it's absolutely breathtaking. But it's not space. It's not a sky vacuum. You're not getting near to Narnia. I mean sky vacuum. That's all lies.
Well, then
Yeah.
my simulation thing is going to come into effect, because they can do some sort of simulation. Nathan, I was just on it when we went on vacation. When I went to the Ark encounter, I sat down in the chair, I put a headset on, and it looked like I was there when they were building the Ark.
But they don't need to. They're just going to go up high in the sky. What possible fakery do they require? They've told you that when you go up high, that's a vacuum. That's the sky vacuum, and the stars carry on further in that direction, whichever way you're pointing. Just a very vast distance. So, other than them making up a story which is beyond where you'll approach and then reach and then return from, what's to fake?
Right. That's a good
What
point. They can
about
just
when they got to go
relabel
to the moon?
something.
Yeah, relabel it. Now, while it could be
Right.
the limits of how high you can go, And that is quite literally the limits of how high you can go. And they can say, we're going to the edge of space, it's the limits of how high we can go, but beyond it, if we had better equipment, we could go on for millions of light years, which we'd need R to get. There we go, that's a different story. My point is that, yeah, you just relabel it. Exactly. Righteous. Not just a wardrobe, it's the entranceway to Narnia. Not just high in the sky, it's the edge of space, a sky vacuum, in violation of natural law.
Nathan, did you give more thought of doing that video about we need R in order for that to happen and list all the things, just a standalone video?
It'll come. So, no, I tend not to go out of my way to make standalone videos unless you... I obviously do. I've got tons of them. What I mean by that is, if this discussion now turned into a useful section, I'll trim it out, edit it, polish it up, put some nice backgrounds on it, put some nice slides in it, potentially put some music behind it if it warranted it. But on the whole, I don't go out of my way to go, right, let's sit down in front of the camera and start talking about how... We did it yesterday, right? We went through all the things... or the day before yesterday, when I detailed my email to David Weiss about all the things that die without R, which is everything, basically, isn't it? It all dies without R.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's why, because I think that's a real good phraseology that we stumbled onto along with all these shows talking about the subject. And let's say you're talking to your friends who are ballers, not anti-flat earthers, but just ballers. And they'd say something, maybe they know you're a flat earther or something. I'm just rehearsing this in my mind because I'll probably do it today because I'm going out. I'll say, yeah, but you'll need R for that. And just say it like that. And then they may know what I'm saying, but they may say, what do you mean by that? And then, boy, instant conversation starter, right? Well, you need R for that. Well, you need R for that.
I can tell you're giving it thought, and I've got to be honest, I used to as well. So I'd get up and I'd have my shower and I'd start thinking about what might be discussed on the show. I've got to be honest, I don't do that anymore. And by not doing it, it tends to be the case that the discussion organically moves on to whatever is relevant at then that moment. And the fact that it's organic means that when it's cut out, I personally feel that it sounds a lot better than a scripted video. Now, I'm not knocking anybody who scripts their videos and works out precisely what they're going to say. That's good for you, and often will produce a better video than I could have produced back in the day when I didn't know as much as I do now. Whereas now, without really trying very hard, we can just talk about this stuff, and that can turn into a very good video.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything different. I mean, this is your 1447th show. It's not as if you don't have an investment in the subject matter of physics. So it comes up organically because there's a lot of memory to the different topics. And so when someone else comes on and says something, your long-term memory starts kicking in. And it comes up organically. It wasn't planned, but you're at least somewhat familiar with the subject to where it's not foreign to you.
Indeed. Hey, John.
Hey, how you doing?
Very well.
Yeah, good morning, John.
My audio interface finally arrived today. Very happy about that too.
Is it set up?
No, I've plugged it in and I've downloaded the software, but I haven't actually got a microphone yet. So rather than buying things twice, I've been saving up, and then when I can afford something, I'll buy it. So last month it was a wire. I remember telling you about it. Very excited I was too.
Yep.
And today it's my audio interface, which is essentially useless because without a mic it doesn't do anything. But eventually I'll buy a mic when I've saved up my PayPals.
So is that mic going to have a swing arm to where you can still lay down on your couch, or do you have to sit at a table now?
No, I've already got that's already... The mic is effectively boomed. I've got a setup where the mic that is a condenser mic, the Yeti, is boomed from above. It's in the perfect position for a boom mic, which is what I'm going to buy. But I've got a condenser mic currently. Yeti isn't in. It's in no way the correct mic for the application I've got with an arm coming over the top of me.
You're referencing the condenser mic is not the right one for the boom.
No. So the condenser mic,
The
really.
Yeti's not the one.
The Yeti. So the way I'm just sat comfortably now talking to you. The way a Yeti should be used. Should I do this on camera just so I can actually make a point of this? Because I'm probably going to change this Yeti eventually. Hold on a second. Let's go into find my camera. Just give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves.
All right. Good morning,
Okay.
John.
I've already done it. Okay. Right. So this is what I've got currently.
He's
Right. So
ready.
this is my Yeti, and how it should sound is like this. This is how it should sound. This is how I should be when I'm speaking, but I'm not because I don't have it in frame and it cuts half my face off if I have it in the right position. But I would assume, I haven't got headphones on, but I would assume this is considerably clearer. However, the moment I start raising my voice, I'm going to clip this mic. So therefore, the only solution to that is to turn the gainers down as far as it can be, which it already is. You can probably just see it here. That's as low as it can go. So therefore, to get around the fact that I have quite a dynamic voice, shall we say, I have to put it away. And then if I shout at somebody, I can lean back and then I can get a bit of mic control off the dynamic mic. I just don't want that. I want to be able to boom it just out of frame, like so, and then never ever give it a second thought. Just stick it off to the other side, actually. Not where it is now. My camera's flipped mirrored, so it looks the same to me like I'm looking in a mirror. Just causes me less confusion. Anyway, I'm going to have the mic on the other side, and then it'll be completely out of my way. But the amount of times I lean forward and smack my head on the mic is basically every single show. And I'm sick of it. I'm sick of smacking into it. I'm sick of my kids grabbing hold of it because it's out in the middle of the room. I want to put it away from stuff and kids and me, and still have it pick up the same or better sound than I'm currently getting with a condenser mic that's about 2 feet away. It needs to be 2 inches away. But it's on its last legs. It's been smacked by acoustic treatment. It's been yanked on by kids. I dropped it the day I got it. It's constantly being swung around and smacked into the wall. It's just generally had a hard life for the 5 or 6 years that I've had it. And don't get me wrong, it's still okay. I've just, I've got it held together with blue tack. So I need a new one. I know that, but, I'm tight. And if I do buy something, I don't want to just buy an SM58 or something secondhand for 50 quid, just because it'll work. And then go, oh, that'll do for now, and I'll have it in frame and it'll be fine. I want to buy the one I want once I've saved up for it, and then never give it another thought for 20 years. Like everything else I buy. I don't give much of it any consideration. I buy it, and then completely forget about it, and it just works. And if it does happen to break, which is occasionally the case, it's worthy of repair. Send it away, get it repaired, and then if it costs several £100s to repair, you don't care because it's cost you a considerable amount of money in the first place and is worthy of that cost. Unlike something that costs several £100s to begin with, when you get a several £100 repair bill for it, you're like, oh, I don't want to spend that. Chuck it in the bin, but it's heartbreaking if it's several £100.
Yeah. I remember... I can't remember what year it was, but I bought a computer for, $350, $400, something like that. And then something happened to it. And then I looked into repair, and the repair was more than buying a new computer. I was like, forget it.
Yeah. Well, that's what Lewis Rossman covers. So depending on the circumstances, if you've got a laptop that's got all data that you cannot be without, then yes, data recovery, which is essentially fixing a motherboard so that you can pull the data back off it. Not so you can necessarily go about your general day-to-day work with it. It's so that you can get the information off it and then chuck it in the bin. Or whatever you're going to do with it. But that's what they do at Lewis Rossman. They're basically data recovery experts, but that involves fixing things to the point where they work, so you can get all of the information back off them. Well, that costs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars to do, because it's very time consuming. And I can understand and appreciate why people would want to do that with a laptop. But as for dropping a phone and then wanting to repair it when it's got component damage, it's like, just forget it. It is in that bracket of mid-price stuff that you will chuck away if it breaks, because it will be complete garbage if you fix it, and it's ultimately just the most expensive disposable thing you can have. Computer almost fits into that category in some cases, but with a desktop, it's modular. You can change bits and bobs of it as they break. But, laptops aren't necessarily that way. They break and you chuck them in the bin and buy another one. Terrible,
Yeah.
really.
Well, the phones are very costly these days. The good ones are very expensive.
Yeah, $1,000 item that's essentially disposable. You know, designed
Yeah.
to be obsolete within a couple of generations, and so small and compact that it's, you know, it's got a finite life. You're going to make the life more finite the smaller you make any component. That's just the way it is. That's the trade-off. So, you know, the thing is deemed to last a short period of time, relatively speaking. Hey, I've got a new channel member. Bick Bear joined as a lion. I'll shout you out on the live show, my friend. Thank you very much for joining as a member. While we're talking tech instead of flat Earth. Disgraceful. I've just got a new item, though, that is directly linked to the show, i.e. the interface. It's an Audient Evo 4 for anybody who's interested.
We transitioned into tech because they don't have R anymore. Remember?
Well, no, I just like talking about tech because I can get away with it in the pre-show.
Come on, I was just setting you up for R.
I got a question about this stuff. As an audio visual guy, do you think you're ever going to be satisfied with your setup?
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm not that kind of guy. I'm quite the contrary. So when I was shopping for anything, my sole intention was to shop for it to be happy for a long period of time. That's my main ambition with anything I purchase. Either it's going to be something that I couldn't care less about, and if it breaks, I'll throw it in the bin and buy another one if I need to, or I'm not going to throw it in the bin. I'll get it fixed. It's worthy of repair. Now, the interface sits in the first category. It was 90 quid. I think the most it costs if you don't find one cheap is about 120, 130 pounds. Well, yeah, that's not nothing, but by the same token, if it broke, I would just chuck it in the bin. There's no way I would consider repairing that. The mic, on the other hand, which is going to cost about £600, considerably more, is something that, when I've looked at all the different things that are out there mic-wise, it's got a 10-year warranty for a start. When I was repping, when things had long warranties, it's because the manufacturer knows they're not going to break. I had one. I had a 5-year warranty on stuff I sold. Why? Because it never broke. It was very, very reliable. So what's the harm in giving a 5-year warranty? Well, there isn't one because you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to get it back. So that's the case with this mic. I want it to last 20 years. I don't want to consider ever replacing it. I just want to stick it in and forget about it, basically. But that means that all of the... I've mocked one up. You know, I've gone to the effort of actually physically mocking up the mic I'm considering buying, sticking it on the stand, and kind of pretending to wire it up. You know, the wires are run, so I can see how they'll run and how far they'll go and where the interface will sit before it's even working. Same with the mic itself. I've got a cardboard and oven liner made mic that's exactly the same dimensions, so I can see how it'll physically operate. And if I'm not happy with it, at that point, before spending huge chunks of money, I can say, actually, this won't function right, for whatever reason.
I'm sorry. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever get the thing you need to watch Ford and Ferrari? I mean, Ford versus Ferrari?
No,
Or you
still haven't got my
waiting on
amp.
that?
Still haven't got that amp back. That amp has been gone since... It's almost a year it's been in repair. I'm not even joking. One amp.
How about a phone call, Nathan? Call him up and say, hey, what's going on, buddy?
The amount of phone calls to the guy repairing that amp has trickled down from every other day to every week to every month to now I asked my wife to chase it up. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, can you get that guy a ring? I've spoken to him on the phone. You know, it's not like I haven't chased him up. The most recent, I spoke to him about 6 weeks ago. And I was like, what's going on with this amp? And he's like, it's a pain in the ass to fix. I'm really struggling to do it. I've now got the parts. I'll be into it. It's the bane of my life. He moans about it. Don't get me wrong. The guy has fixed all 3 of the amps that are currently working in the system, and they function better than they did before I sent them to him. So far, he's done an exceptional job on the amps that he has fixed. But the one that he's got now is a multi-channel amp. It's got 3 amps in one box, and it's very, very tight. There's no space to work in there. So I understand. I told him that when I gave it him, like, this is going to be a pig to work on. No worries. Until he got it. It's like, I know what's inside that box. I've seen it being made. So I know what's inside. It's going to be a pain to work on. I'd never anticipated that prefacing my repair with that would mean that a year later I still haven't got it back. But that's the way it is. In the meantime, Neil, right, I've got a replacement that's about 25 years old. It's been around. It's an old amp, but it was a useful replacement. So I wired that up, and it went bang. In the meantime, as did another 35-year-old amp that I've also got. So in the space of time waiting for this amp to get repaired, 2 other amps have gone. Now, I'm not going to repair either of them. Again, they're just not worth repairing. But it means that I'm without a couple of amps and have been for a significant period. And I want to watch Ford vs Ferrari. It'll be the first thing I do, Neil. I absolutely assure you of that.
So this guy, now it's his pet project, so he wants to fix this amp, I guess.
Oh, yeah, right. A year later, you think he's got high priority for it? I don't think so.
No, but I'm saying, he wants to conquer it, correct?
Oh, he wants to fix it. And he knows how much the parts are going to be because he's already bought them. And he's already tested what's wrong with it. So he's already dug into it, figured out what's wrong, ordered the parts. But then fitting them is, as I know, a complete pain in the arse. It's like a jigsaw puzzle that's held together with wire. So you've got to open up this spaghetti nest of stuff, have it all over the desk, but still all attached together while you start soldering components on. I know it's a pain in the ass for the guy repairing it, but I don't know. At some point, he's got to actually do it. So it's beyond my capabilities, so he's got to do it.
I don't know how these guys do it, because my son's PlayStation went down and we took it apart and we did everything correct, except for the last thing that was hooked to the motherboard. It was like a clamp. We had to squeeze it and pull it out, but it wasn't budging. All we had to do was just try to find a video and we would have got it. Instead, we disconnected it right at the solder by accident, and that screwed the whole thing up. Well, I watched a video after, and the guy, sure enough, said, you got to squeeze this really hard. It may not come out, but it does come out here, so just keep pulling. But the amount of little wires and soldering spots, I don't know how they do it.
I've got no issue with that.
A machine.
I'm quite delicate with that stuff. My issue is I'm colorblind. So in the past, I'm sure I've told you this story before, where I set a set of speakers on fire and had to throw them past a customer out the back door on fire because I'd fixed an amp that had gone DC, or so I thought. And from that day to this, I've never tried to do anything in terms of repair. I mean, I've got a qualification in electronic servicing, you know, despite being colorblind. Because when you're learning with the modern stuff that I was learning with, the color coding is such that you can't really get it wrong even if you are colorblind. They do it in such a way. But that's not so when you get something from the 1970s, in that case a musical fidelity waffle grill amplifier. You know, they're not too concerned about how colorblind you are, and you can easily make mistakes. But beyond that, you know, I've got no issue servicing electronics if I wasn't colorblind.
I was just thinking, they're sending you in to defuse a bomb that's going to blow up the whole city. Pull the blue one, and you pull the green one because you're colorblind. Oh, there goes that.
Yeah, exactly. Or in the case of amplifiers, you end up not repairing an amp in the way it should be repaired for whatever reason, and then it sets stuff on fire. To be fair, the other engineer who was there at the time did say to me, he was like, it might not actually be your fault. They can actually be sort of semi-repaired work and then go DC again. And I was like, all right, okay. So it's not my fault. Great, that's what I'll tell people.
Yeah, working in the electrical industry and being colorblind aren't really conducive.
No, not at all. But, you know, I know my limits. There's certain things I can't do. I can solder basic stuff. I can solder plugs on stuff, and that's fine. There's no, as long as you know which wire's which, it doesn't even have a colour sometimes. But, you know, if it's a piece of equipment, you just got to know your limits, haven't you? I know I can't fix it, so I'll just hand it off to someone else and then moan about them taking an eternity to do it. It'll come back eventually,
Anyway.
And then I'll get to watch Ford versus Ferrari.
Anyway, back to Flat Earth. Where does it go from here?
That's an individualistic thing, Neil. Yeah? I covered this on last week. Where it goes, what's it? Well, the nature of the Earth. Well, it's not going to do anything.
The conversation.
It's not going to do anything. It's not going to unfold. It's not going to fold into a ball. It's not going to do anything. What do you mean? This is your personal journey. So I would flip that back onto you, Neil, and say, where are you at with this whole flat Earth thing, Neil? You as an individual.
Oh, I'm good. I'm saying, where do you think they're going to go next? Because I believe they're going to start going with this space thing and this Virgin Atlantic. I believe now the whole shift is going to be towards space. And that's a violation. So they really can't go anywhere else. Where are they going to go? They have no R.
We welcome that.
They being the propaganda producers. Where are they, the propaganda producers? I don't know. I don't watch the propaganda. I said that earlier. I don't know what Richard Branson's doing. I haven't got a clue. None of the propaganda is part of my life. You know. So, why asking me? I don't know.
Okay, yeah. Let them go wherever they want to go. You can't get there without art. Everything's going to go back to art. The whole point is let them go wherever they want. We've got the Achilles heel. They don't got art. No matter what they say, they need to show art first.
Yeah.
Sunday, Nathan, he's off in a specially designed spacesuit that looks straight out of Deep Space Nine. Apparently that'll be the beginning of his space ball business. Assuming it doesn't go like the last one, which is a fireball in the desert.
But I don't understand, like, because I was just on the shore a few times during this little road trip we were on. And it just baffles me how people don't realize how flat everything is. Like, you're looking right out. You're seeing water flat. Like,
you want my mystic make prediction about where the Virgin Atlantic stuff's going to go?
Sky.
Fire away. Fire away.
They're going to release some news stories about how they're working on commercializing space travel again. It'll never come to fruition again. And then it'll just fade away out of the topic until it comes back again in a few years.
Correct. That's spot on. It's already happened. They do it all the time. Rinse and repeat. Yes, that's precisely what will happen. Just letting you know, space is still, on our agenda, and we're going to be getting there soon. Oh, brilliant. Oh, okay. Remember a couple of years ago when they said they were going to get there? I wonder if they've got there yet. Oh, I don't know. Maybe they already went. A couple of years go by. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, so it goes on.
Apparently, that if this is successful, this test, they can start selling tickets again because 10 years ago they were selling tickets, and they think that the moral realization they can't really keep selling them. But if they can blag this one as a successful flight, they're going to start flogging them. I think it's $750,000 a ticket again.
Yeah. So the rinse and repeat propaganda only affects you if you're paying attention to it. That's the bottom line here.
And of course, in the week, just as we were searching for something, it just popped up. I want to say, a very sharp-looking spacesuit. I don't know how good it'd be for space, but it looks very well tailored.
Yeah, and like all times before, the chosen actors, and I mean actors from many backgrounds, not just Hollywood actors, will be the ones who go up there and come with raving reviews. And they'll have their little group of astronauts who lie all the time, covered.
You're talking about people who've figured out the trick, in my opinion. If you want me to speculate, then Richard Branson, in this example, has figured it out. He's figured out the scam. That's all that is. And he can have a little piece of it. Just has to go along with the blag every 10 years or so, and that'll be it. The next flavour of the month will come along. Elon Musk will do the same. He's figured it out, right? He's figured out the blag. Oh, I'll be a private enterprise going to Narnia. Yeah, that sounds good. Hey, NASA, I'm a private going to NASA's realm. Yeah, nod. Yeah, all good, yeah? That's what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, a bit like nuclear missiles. Only certain countries seem to be able to make them. We could do it 60 years ago, but apparently With today's technology, only still as Pakistan, India, and a few of us can. You know what I mean? It's how whatever the membership for getting in that club, whether it is, oh, I'm just going to go ahead and claim I can do it, or what? It's strange, but it's the members club, isn't it? Hey.
Are you denying missiles, nuclear missiles?
I didn't say that. I said it's very odd how very, very different time ago, cronky old Britain could put them together post 1940s, yeah. But in today's modern world, apparently the power of a whole nation like Iran, they can't do it. Or just, we can stop and do it by sending in a bloke called Hans Blix, yeah, and stuff like that. Apparently that's sufficient to contain this super weapon so that only certain people have access. That just doesn't seem that plausible to me, that.
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected. And if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by the Adam Meakin, 10th man, father of a stolen child, Neil, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Afternoon, everyone.
Good morning.
Hey, hey.
Hello.
Hello, good to have you all. Heard a voice I hadn't heard before. Ariel, is that you? Nice to have you.
It's me. Thank you.
Ariel.
Also, shout out to Big Bear for joining as a lion. Rawr. Good to have you, my friend. Thank you very much indeed for the support. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere-edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
Not without R.
Not without
Well, if the Earth had,
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, if the Earth had a radius, it should be visible.
So if we had an R value, that would imply that we were on a sphere, and if we were on a sphere, there'd be a geometric limitation to our view, as asserted in the Begging the Question Proof of Nothing Perspective Hijacking Earth Curve Calculator based on R. Also, to acquire that R value, you would be deriving it by way of the physical geometric sphere-edge horizon and a tangent point to it, so that you can take a dip angle measurement from a 90-degree point that you're going to assume is taken from a zenith on a sphere. So you can't get R, because they're currently telling us how refracted it is and how it's beyond the geometric limitations of a sphere with a radius of 3959. So without R, you don't have, and we don't see, a geometric horizon, therefore we're not on a sphere.
They said that the R equals to 8 inches per mile squared because they're stuck on their 3959 has to be based on that. So do we observe 8 inches from L squared of curvature?
No. When it's surveyed flat.
Yeah, and then they take geometric considerations after that.
Right. So in the pre-show, we were saying, or 10th asked me if I was going to do a video about all of the things I discussed with David Weiss recently that die because R's dead. I said, it'll come up organically, but you'll see from the theme of this housekeeping session what we're talking about. So let's move on. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Not without R.
No center without a radius.
That's a couple of layers deep as far as presuppositions go, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed it is. It's got a whole backstory to it. Story of Thea smashing into Earth at a glancing blow, and the debris coalescing to form our moon. Yeah, they got a whole load of bullshit that goes along with it. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No,
Hello,
there's
guys.
no evidence for gravity.
Gravity? What is that?
It's an idea.
Both mathematical descriptions rely on a radius value.
Oh, so not without R. How is R required for gravity, John?
M2 and Newtonian, the center of M2, and then mass 1 in Einsteinian.
So without the R value, no gravity.
Yep.
Oh dear, fundies, this is looking bad. What about axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? That's just a claim we spin. Surely that doesn't need R.
Axial rotation of what?
Earth-based variety?
Of a what, though? Of a ball.
What kind of Earth?
Ball needs an R.
I'm not going to say that.
What?
Ball needs an R, but how do we know it's a ball if we don't have an R?
Oh no, you're not saying that without the R value we've got no evidence of axial rotation, are you? Oh no.
I think that's a bit of a problem, yes. Good morning, people, by the way.
Hey, Chocolate.
You would still need the R to prove it, even if you were able to prove it was rotating. You'd still need an R to prove it's a ball rotating.
So what
Yeah,
causes curvature?
What does the what? Back off your mic a little bit so we can hear you a bit clearer.
Yeah, what causes it? What's the cause of curvature?
What's the cause of it? It's not really a causal
Yeah.
thing, is it? More of a
It's it's gravity, isn't it? I'm joking.
Curvature's a concrete noun. Something having curvature isn't really a phenomena. It's not something causal that you're going to ascribe to it. You can ascribe a causal relationship to things appearing to have the bottoms of themselves cut off in the distance when they reach and breach diffraction limits or obscured by things in the near foreground. That would be a causal relationship that is, in fact, ascribed to Earth curve edge horizons getting in the way. That's where the causal comes in. But of course, if you're going to assert that, which isn't me asserting it for anybody who wants to come along and tell me you and your curvature's debunked. Anyway, when you're going to assert that, that becomes a causal relationship, which falls into the remit of science. Hence, when they suggest that we've got a cause and effect relationship, we ask them for science because that's what science deals with. But curvature itself is a concrete noun.
Do you think he meant the gases are curved because they say gravity and the atmosphere?
Well, not just the gases, though, right? Like in their fantasy story, it's a ball because of gravity, right?
No, it's
But
not. That's wrong. That's anti-flat Earth rhetoric that you're claiming there. That is not the case. That's not ball rhetoric. No, anti-flat Earth. We've got to start
It's not their
distinguishing.
gravitational accretion story.
The gravitational accretion stories, Einsteinian gravitation, yes.
Yeah, that's why it's a ball, because of gravity. Whatever that is.
Okay, well, let me ask the next question then. Any evidence that we can have atmospheric pressure without a container?
The spheric part is a problem.
No, you
What,
don't need a
space?
container for an atmosphere.
Say again, Skeptical?
Why space?
Space is a second law of thermodynamics violation.
You don't need a container for an atmosphere. It's not
And how do we prove
incorporated
that?
in the
Because
model.
we have an atmosphere.
Hold on, just let Alwyn
No, the
repeat
second
himself.
law doesn't apply to atmosphere. You don't need a container for it.
That's correct. Did you all hear what Alwyn just said?
Now that's fully approved rhetoric.
Yeah.
Correct. That's the right rhetoric. The correct rhetoric is atmosphere. Yeah? Sphere-shaped air. Well, the second law of thermodynamics doesn't apply to sphere-shaped air. That's what they would say in defense of that. That's the rhetoric. Doesn't apply.
You can say it and be true, can't you? Even though you're a lying scumbag as you say it, but technically what you're saying is true because, yeah, it doesn't apply to atmosphere because it doesn't exist.
Somebody in Discord's got their mic open, causing a load of chaos, by the way. Whoever that is, please can you mute? Unless you've got something to say. Does someone want to add something from Discord? No, clearly not. Yeah, in essence, if you've got something that is only applicable in the model, like atmosphere, sphere-shaped air, you can simply say that that part of the model doesn't have a certain law applied to it. A law of nature doesn't apply to atmosphere. It just doesn't apply. Well, doesn't apply is a way of saying stands in violation of. But we don't live on the model. So it's perfectly acceptable for a model to not have a natural law applied to it. It's a model. Heliocentric model. The whys and wherefores of what happens in physical reality is irrelevant. It's a model. So
Right.
having atmosphere...
Natural laws don't apply to models.
Yeah. But atmosphere,
Yeah, but
sphere-shaped air...
then that's make believe though.
We're going to need an R value for... We're going to need an R value just to keeping with the theme that we've got going. Hello?
Oops, yeah, Nathan. Okay, yeah. You can't... If you're going to presuppose that the air bends, the rate of bend would be determined by R. We don't have R.
That's correct.
And the layering that's in atmospheric law depends on a force acting upon that air. So we don't have a force anymore.
That force would be determined by R, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, I'm going to forego asking for evidence of R for obvious reasons, but any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Oh, too easy.
Oh, no.
We
Don't
don't
you need
even
R
know
for
what
that
it
too?
is.
Hold on, Chocolate. Say again, Rams.
We don't even know what the sun is.
No, but it's claimed to have a distance to it, and it kind of depends on R. I was hoping we'd get there a bit quicker.
We'd need to know the
You need
R
R for that.
so that we could then presuppose that Venus is a ball the same as us and has the same R as us, and from there we could calculate the
See,
distance to the
that almost makes it fun because you get to presuppose two R's
double R.
before making that distance. Look at that. Just upper the stakes, baby.
But it's the same R.
Same R.
Same R,
No,
right? That's why they call it a twin, right?
That's right. It's got the same R as us. Earth's twin, Venus. Ever wonder why they call it Earth's twin? Well, because Christian Huygens arbitrarily decided that it got the same R value as the presupposed R value of Earth that we've debunked, and subsequently debunked every single housekeeping question asked so far on this show. Shout out to DITRH, that's deep inside the rabbit hole, David Weiss, who had this explained to him by me a couple of days ago. But I thought it was worthy of discussion, as did 10th Man. And it is. It all crumbles because of the black swan. Isn't it beautiful? Something that isn't R value dependent. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics.
You can't link that one back to R.
No, I
you
said
could
that.
look at stuff and presuppose R's all day. Why not?
I think you can. I mean, they could technically do something that wasn't R related, but I think in most of the stuff that they, in a pseudo form, claim as their science, it is linkable to R. Everything, because it's all measured in AUs, which are derivable via R.
Good point. A lot of the astrophysicists' rhetoric is based in R. but I don't think you can say without R you wouldn't have astrophysicists. You know, they might transition into different.
No, but they'd have to change the model, wouldn't they? It would
Yeah.
require a rewriting of what they believe to not include R. It is intrinsically in, like I say, via an AU.
Or they just make stuff up like that. You know, when their model actually doesn't work, they make stuff up, extra stuff like dark matter. Why not?
Every star is described as AUs, light years or whatever, yeah? And we define that via R, matching R of Venus to get the AU. So everything they do, every calculation they do is based on R.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that you can't say there won't be astrophysicists without R. There's no geometric horizon without R. There's no model without R. There's no cosmology that is adhered to by astrophysicists without R. But the astrophysicists themselves might continue in name only in a different cosmology without R. So R, in this instance, isn't the death of astrophysicists, only the rhetoric that they punt.
It isn't just the term astrophysics. Wouldn't that be just a reification in itself?
No, you
It's an
can't.
oxymoron.
Not necessarily, only because you don't know. So you're saying astro. I don't need to preface what that means, but physical, right? Well, you're saying, well, no, these things are intangible, therefore, isn't it? But you don't know that they're not, as much as I'm saying that they don't know that they are, and they haven't proven it to any stretch beyond fake journeys to moons that they've apparently walked on through fake mediums. Well, beyond that, there's no assertion being made of physicality or non-physicality. So you can't just say, well, because they're claiming a certain type of physicality and we can disprove that, and we can highlight the lack of evidence, doesn't automatically mean that the contrapositive's true. Doesn't automatically mean non-physical. You don't know. I don't know. Do you know those stars aren't physical, Chocolate? Do you know something I don't?
I'd agree with you there, Nathan. You can go as far as to disprove theirs, but not actually make any positive statement yourself as to physicality or intangibility. As well, we can say they're intangible to us at the moment for everything we know, but as for the future, I think you can't make that as a definitive.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of an armed robbery taking place, and the security cameras capture a guy just walking off camera that had just bought something, and then two masked robbers burst in, right? And they get hold of the guy that they can see, and they know his identity. And they pull him into the police station, and they say, look, you could be one of these two burglars, right? You could be the burglar. And he says, no, actually, I've got a cast iron alibi because 3 people picked me up just off frame, and here they all are giving me an alibi. And they turn around and say, well, unless you can tell me who the 2 masked robbers are, you're not off the hook just yet. And he goes, I've got nothing to do with it. He's like, yeah, but there's definitely something happened, and the fact that you've now disproved your involvement doesn't mean you're off the hook. You've got to now prove who did actually do it. Likewise, well, there's a positive assertion that there's a sky vacuum. Yeah, that's violation of natural law. We'd all be dead. The gas would have filled it. Well, okay, what is the sky? I don't know. I haven't made any claims about it. But I know what it isn't, and I know where they're talking nonsense. No, you're not allowed to debunk my sky vacuum until you give me an alternative solution. I don't have that, I'm afraid. I just know it's not a vacuum. No, that's not acceptable. Right, well, that's not my problem, I'm afraid. I don't know what the sky is. I know it's not a vacuum, and that kind of craps all over your religion of a sky vacuum, and that's where it ends. Do I now need to give you anything? No, just walk away.
Wait a second, I got an issue here. Because when I was
Also
saying months ago about getting to the moon, I got hammered, and now you're telling me that Adam says we don't know, maybe someday we can get to the stars to see if they're physical, and nobody gets on him?
No, that's not what I said
No,
either.
that's not what I said.
No, that is not what I said. I did not say, quoting Neil, someday you might get to them. I did not say that. I said,
this goes to what
hello. Can I just clarify for Neil? What I said was, you don't know that they're not physical. So if you were to come and claim that they are intangible, yeah? Now, by a standard I can physically adhere to, I know from my perspective right now that they are intangible to me. Does that mean that you are never going to actually get to touch them? I don't know. Maybe. It was believable enough for people to be lied about going to the moon and them standing on it and nod along and go, yeah, that makes sense, that you could stand on that light in the sky. And everyone went, yeah, all right. Well, I'm not saying that makes that true, but I'm just saying that it's in the mind's eye of basically the entirety of the Western world. So it's not a push or a stretch to say, well, yeah, it's not implausible to believe that, yeah, just because this is a useful example of the fallacy. Just because it's got fallacious reasoning behind the assertion that it is physical, and you can debunk their assertion of physicality by way of their fallacious reasoning, to assert that it's therefore not physical is a fallacy. Yeah? To disprove something. Likewise, I was watching the behaviour panel yesterday, and one of the guys, Mark Bolan, used denying the antecedent formal logical fallacy to disprove unicorns. It's where it gets interesting. So in the comments, I pointed out, as an example of, quote, good logic, Mark used a denying the antecedent formal logical fallacy, and then I put a link to Google to explain the fallacy. Yeah? And then explained how you could actually prove or disprove things. However, in so doing, I also had to then point out that if I went on to say, because Marx used a formal logical fallacy, denying the antecedent, to disprove the existence of unicorns, I could now turn around and say, because he's used a fallacy, unicorns are real. That's the fallacy. Just because he's used a fallacy to disprove the existence of unicorns doesn't automatically make unicorns real because he's used a fallacy. That's the fallacy. Everyone following along?
I knew unicorns were real.
Pardon?
Isn't it also a logical fallacy to appeal to future discoveries or appeal to the future?
Yeah, it's appeal to the future fallacy, that's correct. Off on a slight tangent from my point. If I've done an appeal to the future fallacy, we'll cover that in a minute. Shout out to Godzilla37. If you bought your child a model plane and the model was broken, to stop their crying, you'd have to replace their model. Remind you of anyone? yeah, exactly. You broke my ball. You got to give me another ball or a different equivalent toy.
Anyway, I said months ago that I believe that I believe that there's the firmament, and I believe there's a dome over us, and the stars, the moon, and the sun are inside of it, and I believe that we could get there. And you told me no. Space is fake.
No, I've said you've got a belief, and you've not provided any evidence for it. So what am I supposed to say? Oh, well, that's an acceptable standard. No, it doesn't disprove that it's not true either. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to assert that disproving someone's positive assertion, A, doesn't need a response that gives a positive assertion to fill in the gap that you've left. That's not required. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if you do, and you assert that what they're claiming, in this case physicality, is incorrect and the contrapositive is true, therefore intangibility, therefore you're using the fallacy, because you could be eventually, here's where your appeal to the future fallacy comes in, be proven wrong.
Well, it's hard to debunk something that's not been proven to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the basis of who's going to provide the evidence, and the onus falls on the person making the positive claim.
But what I'm saying is, when we ask for, and what's the other housekeeping question with the astrophysicists and all of that? Okay, Owen says not yet, right? So that means not yet, but someday maybe you could get to these stars or wherever's out there and see what they are.
Yeah. Yep. And if you appeal to that as being the reason why they are physical, it's an appeal to the future fallacy.
Yeah, that's the whole point, right? So we ask, is there any viable hypothesis? Just because they haven't been able to formulate a viable hypothesis yet doesn't mean that they can't eventually.
Right, as long as that idea in the future is not going to be based on a physical presumption about them, then who knows what they will figure out they might figure out how the ways to manipulate the heavenly bodies, and then they could potentially engage in a scientific experiment.
I'm going to find that show where I mentioned it and you just got all over me, and this is the same thing.
What are you moaning about now?
I'm backing
You have to have
I'm
an
backing you,
argument,
Neil.
right?
I'm backing you, Neil. Yes. They
I
could.
know.
Okay. Whatever. Neil's obviously got his panties in a twist over something. I don't really know what.
I'm telling you because I said it and you got all over me. You know, Neil, face your fate.
I'll try once more. When somebody challenges you to prove something that you've disproved, you don't need to. The burden is on the person making the claim. Now, if you've not made a claim and you're merely taking apart someone's positive assertion, that would be their claim, then there's nothing left to do once that's been done. Once you've taken apart a position based on its fallacy, based on its lack of evidence, based on whatever it is that you're taking it apart within your argument, or response to their claim, more importantly, there's nothing left to do at the end of that process. You don't have to fill in the blanks. You don't have to tell the police who the actual bank robbers were or who the shop robbers were. You don't have to do that. That's not your responsibility. Once you've disproved something, in this case, or by example, your involvement, it's not up to you to prove what actually is the case. That's not your job. And it's not my job to tell people what the sky is.
Let's forget it because until I find the show and I get exactly what I said and you just got all over me, we're talking past each other. Next.
There is no next. We're just going to dwell on this inevitably, Neil. Indefinitely, rather, not inevitably.
I think the truth in this debate is the realization that you can't prove the Earth is a ball or flat scientifically.
But it's
That's
not.
You
what
can't by
people need
measurements,
to.
though.
Well, you can measure it, but it's not a scientific endeavour. It's not. It's
That's
not a
right.
cause and effect question, is it? What shape is the Earth? So what is question?
So what is question?
That's a measurement question.
So, could you ask what caused the Earth to be flat? And then
Caused
test
it to be flat? You could ask the question. Good luck varying and manipulating that which caused the flatness, Arwin.
Yeah, we'll figure it out eventually. And when we do, it'll be the end of the world.
No,
Isn't that like...
Go on, John.
I was going to say, isn't that like coming up with a cause for entropy or a cause for time? You know, it's...
Yes,
kind
yes,
of
it is. Yes.
like a God claim.
Yes, where did it all begin? What's the beginning of the entropy increase? How does it all start? Yes, this will lead you to the ontological primitives and the question of whether everything came out of nothing or there was a creator. That's where this leads, yes. Absolutely correct.
Yeah, but those are all phenomena, right? Those, it seems logical that those would have causes. Just the Earth being flat or being a globe would just be the Earth being flat or being a globe. It wouldn't really have a cause because it just is.
Yeah, whatever. That's total cop out. Make a claim.
Earth's flat. Disprove me.
Yeah, but that's not even a claim anymore. It's obviously and observably flat.
Exactly.
The extraordinary
That's
claim
exactly
is
our
that it's
point.
not. The extraordinary claim is that it's spherical.
Well, Earth itself is a phenomenon, is it?
No.
Like a shoe?
No, it's not. A concrete noun
What do you
again.
mean, no?
It's just a concrete noun.
Oh, boy.
Earth being here is not a phenomenon.
Tree being there is not a phenomena. Leaves falling from the tree would be a phenomena. Tree, concrete noun. Earth, concrete noun. Phenomena, something occurring.
Yeah, Neil, I would say what led to Earth being here, whatever that may be. Yeah, that would be a phenomenon. But just the Earth being here, no, it's just the Earth here. That's it.
Cue the just so stories about Thea smashing into a presupposed spherical Earth at a glancing blow and the debris forming the moon, which we later travelled to. Yeah?
Don't forget Thea.
It's just stories. It's not cause and effect. It's not phenomena being caused by variation of presumed cause. That's not what we're dealing with.
Neil, maybe you're trying to say that the Earth being here is phenomenal. Maybe that's what you're trying to say, but it's not a phenomenon.
Just to add to the Thea story, I've been writing a paper that I'm going to try to submit about how life also was transferred with Thea, so that they can kick the can down the road with that as well.
Oh, well, that's brilliant. See, Arwin, do you want some tips? This is how you make your €5 million.
What? Now, I wanted to ask about phenomenon. You know, for something to be viable within a scientific hypothesis, it has to be a phenomenon that can be manipulated and varied, right? But that doesn't make all phenomenon the same, right? Because the lights in the sky, they are definitely phenomenon, right? We just can't really vary and manipulate them in order for them to classify for science. But they're still phenomenon. So could we call the Earth a phenomenon?
No.
We could.
Hold on. You convoluted two things. Stick with what you first stated, which was about the stars. Yes, you were going really well until you were like, well, no, we can't science it. Yeah, you can. Any phenomena can be scienced, right? And the problem you'll find is that it's really hard to do science, because what happens most of the time when you do science, Arwin? So in this case, we're going to take your example. You've got the stars. And you're going to say, what causes that effect? We're just going to use a blanket statement. The stars, that's the phenomenon. The phenomenon of the stars. Yeah? What causes that effect?
That's a what is question, though, isn't it?
No, what causes them to occur? Looking out my window now, no stars. Later there will be stars. Something's happened. Stars. That's a phenomenon. There's no problem there. Let's just move past that. Anyway, so we're going to study those. Well, you can formulate a hypothesis. I can say, if chicken curry, then stars. That's my alternative hypothesis. And I've got a null. If chicken curry, not stars. Yeah? That's my null hypothesis. So I eat chicken curry. Yeah? And what happens? Which gets validated?
The cause of stars is chicken curry.
No, I eat chicken curry and the null gets validated because it's not the cause. So I've ruled that out. Chicken curry doesn't cause the stars. Well, isn't that joyous?
It is science, but it's shit science. But it's the only level of science you can actually do, which is to validate the null, which is just basically proving the obvious. Because fundamentally, to do science on something, you need to know what it is. You then to have some reason, thought, and deductive, abductive even reasoning, moment of genius for you to apply what is the cause of that. But fundamentally, you've got to know what it is. Before I can look at a fire over there and go, oh, there's combustion, that's why it's burning, yeah? I need to know it's a fire and what a fire is. I've only got a light in the sky and physicality assumption bias.
But you can still science.
What about...
Just one more example that's less farcical. So if you say, I think magnetism causes the stars, you go, okay. All you then need to do is vary and manipulate magnetism and cause that effect. Now, it doesn't have to be the effect actually up in the sky. You just have to cause a star to appear by way of magnetism. Vary magnetism, cause the effect of stars. You've then established that magnetism causes starlight. Yeah? But more likely what will happen is you'll vary magnetism and nothing will happen. You'll validate the null.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. All you do is not very progressive science. You kind of rule out the obvious. But so when you've got the star in a jar, that's a good example. I could create a star in a jar, but all I've done is create a star in a jar. What I can't do is say that's how a star is, because I can't say that that thing up there is the same thing, because I can't say what it is yet, because I can't. It's intangible at the moment. So I can't really.
It's a nice correlation.
Of any use science.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It's a nice correlation, but I've always had a problem with that. Oh, this is what we're looking at when we're looking at stars, because it looks like this. It's like, it looks like that, but how do we know that that's what it is? I've always had a problem with that. solar luminescence
Your
thing.
causation from something that you don't know what it is.
What
We're
about
not a very good cult.
something easy?
We're not a.
Where'd the scientific method come from? Didn't man
Hold on,
make
Neil.
up
There's
the
two people trying to
scientific
get through
method?
each other, and you've joined in to make it three. One or other, either skeptical or John. Who's going to go first?
It was me actually. not
FEEG. Go
skeptical.
ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. I was gonna say, what about something easy like rainfall, for example? Like we're told they know the cause of rainfall, but scientifically, how do you go around proving the cause of rainfall?
You induce the effect.
And have they done that? Have scientists induced the effect
Yeah.
of rainfall?
Yeah. Water vapor condensing. Yeah, that's definitely validatable by science. A cause and effect relationship that you can induce by varying and manipulating that which you assume caused the effect. Absolutely. Yes.
But
And
they're
the
not
same-
doing it like with the clouds or the actual rainfall itself. They're replicating the idea, but they're not manipulating
No,
the cause
no.
of the actual effect.
Here they are. You can cause that effect. You can cause the effect of clouds condensing into rain and falling back down. You can cause that effect. Anyway, my point is that you can do it with rain. You can't do it with stars. No one's causing that effect on any scale. No one's doing something to cause the effect of stars in any small or large scale. Nobody is doing that. But you could. It's absolutely within the purview. Is that the right word? Purview of science. Remit. That's the word.
I think your chicken curry example is better because if you don't approach it gingerly, you could foul it up.
Adam and I have discussed this a couple of years ago, right? Where does the genius in science lie? Well, it's in the logic that takes you to your assumed cause to then validate it by way of experimentation. But to get to that, that's the genius. That's where your quote unquote scientist, that's where the genius comes in. Because I can list off endless things that I can put through the method, perfectly valid too, that don't cause the effect. And time again, that's what I'll have happen. I'll validate null after null after null. So it wasn't that. So it wasn't that. So it wasn't that. Well, that rules that out then. And I can go on forever. Where does the genius come in? When someone uses the logic by looking around them at the things that are happening to hone in on what they think might cause it to only then validate it. That's the genius. Now, am I going to be able to do that? No. Does it mean that the person who's actually performing the test, is the genius in that scenario? No. The genius is the one who formulates the hypothesis, the alternative specifically. The person who comes up with the assumed cause, not yet validated, and goes forth to vary it and validate it. That's genius.
Well, in my example, your answer was a validation of condensation, not rainfall.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Okay, what's your point, though? Are you saying this isn't science or isn't capable of science? Because if so...
Well, I'm saying with this specific example of rainfall, whoever came up with the cause didn't do it scientifically.
I think
that would be...
if I could address that, yeah, you're probably right in its technical sense. If we were to say with regards to rainfall in creation, maybe we don't scientifically understand all of the components, so we don't have a completely comprehensive theory. But with regards to certain of the more basic functions, we do have scientific evidence for that, and it's demonstrable. But could we say that
I agree with that.
scientifically we understand rainfall within creation? No, I think that would be wrong because we don't even know what the containment is and how it functions. So, and that will play a component. So.
Sure, but equally, just to follow on from that, my friend, when Quantum Eraser gives an example of boiling water, what's the cause of the boiling water? I don't think, I'm not sure, you might, but I don't think if you went Google searching for the person who validated experimentally that heat causes boiling water, it's just a crude example. Doesn't mean it's not valid. I'll
Well,
stick to
like
for your benefit.
Adam said,
Right, I'm going to take the W and just take the L, and just say, okay, my example's not as good as quantum erasers. In future, I'll stick to boiling water rather than rainfall. How's that?
yeah, I agree with what Adam said, because when I say rainfall, it sounds simple, but it's all the mechanics of how the clouds are formed and how the water is condensed from the cloud. All that is a process rather than just a simple condensation, right?
Agreed. It would end up being part of a theory. If I've oversimplified it, and indeed, if someone was studying that, they'd start with experimental validity for why water moves upwards in the first place when heat is applied. That would be your cause. Then it would move on in terms of experimentation on other aspects to form theories in terms of the water cycle. Now, that may or may not have been done, and it isn't really relevant to my point in terms of what you're going to validate with astrophysicists' methodologies of stars and their stories. But yeah, your point's still valid. I will just take it on the chin. You're right.
We're not a very productive cult. We need a story that we all believe and follow to be a cult. I'm ashamed of all of us right now.
Sorry, what? I was paying attention to the chat for a second. You're ashamed of what now?
We're not a very good cult.
It's about honesty of reply, isn't it? Really. And whilst the point we were making was valid, actually, with regards to the question and the way it was phrased, if you're going to pick rainfall, whilst it does, as was cited, sound simple, if you're going to be honest, actually, it's probably the most complex thing you could have picked. Within that, there are certain components, though. So to me, it's just about answering the question honestly.
Perfect. But now let's segue back onto Neil, who started this whole thing, but this whole ball rolling. When it comes to the propaganda that we're punted from astrophysicists, Neil, wouldn't you recognise that it's not given any scientific validity to their just so stories about sky vacuums, Narnia? You don't have to pay any attention anymore. It's not really worthy of your time. Or at least I personally don't feel that that sort of propaganda is worthy of my time. And it has almost no effect on me. Even though I do a show about it, it probably has less effect on me than your general Joe Normie.
Yeah.
But I wanted that to lead on, because in the pre-show you were saying, where does flat Earth go next? And I'm like, what are you talking about? The Earth didn't change, hasn't unfolded or folded up. So what do you mean? It's an internal thing. It's you and how you perceive this world and how you go about your general
their
life.
arguments. Their arguments. Where can their arguments go from here? We've destroyed everything. When you left yesterday, we talked about it a little more. It's like a zombie movie, but in the zombie movies, you cut off their head and they're gone. It's like, how many times can we cut off their heads and they're still walking? And it's like a joke now.
Yeah, they've got nowhere to go, Neil. You're right. But that's their problem. Share your pain, fundies.
Correct, it's their problem. But I like to speculate where they would go next. I think they're going to go to space, and they're going to stay there because it's safe for them there. Even though we destroy it, it's safe for them there.
They should listen to Arwen. That's really where they should go next. Or Baldwin.
Okay. Right, Adam, you've got your...
Wait, what?
Hold on a second. You've got your composite up. Did you want to go?
Yeah, it was just... I'm not sure if it's aired yet, whether it was in the after show yesterday, but we were discussing this picture that the Roofies brought to the table. And Arwen raised a really good point in terms of left to right curvature. We're always talking across the Z-axis in terms of this hidden stuff. But you raised the point, and we were chatting in the after show, and I went and did a little bit of research identifying this point over here that looks like an island. It's not. It's a peak on the mainland, and the farthest peak over here, which I think I found pretty well across this stretch, and that came out to be 118 miles. So I did a little bit of maths just to reify it into a ball. I made a few assumptions. First being, if you've got, I like to deal in metrics. So we're looking at roughly 200 kilometers in the full picture, because there's a little bit extra. So if we take that it's 200 kilometers, that equates to 20,000 pixels in the image. I'm using roofie units. And in doing so, we looked at the width of it, and we say, well, from center point to any to the left or right edge is therefore 100 kilometers. So if we take that as the top of our ball, and we've got 100 kilometers of drop to apply to the edge, doing a little bit of maths, that worked out to be 78.4 pixels. So I've then applied that change to the original. Obviously, that's the original image, and then I've applied it in Photoshop just to put that curve in. And it's not spectacular, but you could see that it is noticeable. The bottom one's still the flat one, look, but if you see the curvature, it's more noticeable if you look at the white at the top. That will show you the amount of curve that's been incorporated. So 0 at the point of observation, and down to those 78.4 pixels there for the drop that you would expect to see if it was a ball. That's how it would look, not the flat plane. And that's just taking into account and perverting. Obviously, the left to right is not put into account the z-axis bend, but it's just to show what the point Arwin raised. There you
Thank you very much, Adam. Anybody want to make comment on this current observation composite that's been put together? Anyone from Discord? Any comments? If not, if you're watching this live, then this evening on my second channel, subscribe today, Nathan Oakley channel, will be yesterday's Uncut and After show, where this got discussed extensively. So be here or be sphere, 9 PM UK time on my second channel, which is Nathan Oakley, for Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After show. I did actually give it a title.
Relate to our naked eye,
again,
and the way we see across the horizon that we see.
If we were on a sphere, it would obviously be spherical. Also, although Adam has gone along and begged the question and used their bastardization of angular representations by way of pixel measurements, no theodolites, no sextants, no measurements of any angles, measurements of angles of things that can be seen, which include their actual heights that can't be seen. It's just a complete convoluted cluster screw of nonsense. Anyway, Adams used that convoluted cluster screw of nonsense to derive what, begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator would say would be the left to right curvature in this panorama, a la, or as per the, what's the term, advanced section on the Metabunk curve calculator. However, there's no perspective being taken into consideration. All of these calculations, by way of pixels, I might add, have got nothing to do with how we actually view the world at all. Correct, Adam?
Yeah, totally. I did enjoy writing my new units. PX is a new unit form I've written down. It's exactly that. It is. I mean, my critique of Riff is it's just, you can't do this. In terms
Can you
of
zoom in?
trying to take
Adam, at some point, did you say roofie unit?
Yeah, roofie unit. Yeah. Can you zoom in a second, Adam? Can you just zoom in?
Which bit?
Any.
Just in the middle. Or I'll go to the edge because you'll see more extremity.
So while Adam's zooming in on that, a quick question, Adam. So if for the sake of argument you had an aeroplane in this picture just above the mountain line, yeah? And it was 1 pixel of aeroplane, would it be the same value as a pixel right near the ground where the water appears to meet the land?
No.
No?
That'd be very interesting. Yeah, it would.
What do you mean, no?
Very different. This pixel up here would represent a much. The pixel, I'll do it the other way around. The pixel down here would be more compressed. So in 1 pixel would be a lot more meters than 1 pixel up here would have.
But surely the value doesn't change, though, right? It's the same. It's just pixels, isn't it?
That's why they're roofie units, because
roofie units. Yeah. Dumb man units, we should call them, for a dumb man.
It's that criticism that orthographic numbers don't just translate whether you convert into roofie units of pixels or not into a photographic, into an optical image. It's just not.
Just stupid, really. Just what a stupid person would do. Yeah, well, in conclusion, Ruhif is thick, and his application of pixel values is just stupid. I mean, really stupid. Hope you're listening, Ruhif, because we're laughing at you. How stupid you are. Yeah, enjoy. Thanks again, Adam. Excellent stuff.
I must say, just like Adam talked about the rainfall with these 2 pictures, Adam always comes in due time.
In due time, ha ha ha.
I was struggling on that.
Nobody else got that?
Yeah, I was struggling. It took you to repeat it. Yeah, very.
Credit where credit's due.
Oh, it was Arwin's idea to do it. I'd not thought, thought to stick the bend in, but I weren't expecting that much actually, that many roofie units. So it was quite noticeable because that whole thing is only like 1,200 units high, so it was quite a decent chunk. You just missed it, Brian.
No. Not at all.
I got it, man. I got it.
Hello. Hi, Brian. I'm sure you've come in for this very reason, right? I'm not going to just segue away now. Brian's joined. Hello.
Hey, Nathan. Hey, Adam. Everyone. And everyone. Yeah, no, I was just looking at it there. I was watching it on the live show. The thing about that is what we even see there with that curve is not what we would see because that's only from left to right. In reality, there'd be a huge amount of those peaks that aren't there. So it would look even more bizarre. Like if people want to, what I'm saying is that the top image is not a representation of what it would really look like in comparison to the bottom image, because you're only seeing the left to right curvature. You're not seeing the front on.
I said that. What I've done there is pervert the left and right put there, but what's not been applied is what I did do on the Blackpool Swan is by reducing the mountains is put that Z application of curvature, which obviously lowers the peaks to their correct geometric position if they were on a ball, as opposed to what we're seeing here. Yeah, so on this has only gone left to right, not across the Z.
Yeah, no, I obviously know that, and everyone else on the panel knows that, but it's for the audience, with people who maybe knew. Some Glober could show them that and say, well, one looks very much the same as the other, and you can see how you could be mistaken that it's flat and it's refraction. No, in reality, the top image, most of those peaks, like that Mont Pouget I was showing yesterday, that's 1,410 feet, that would only be 132 feet of that. 132 feet is all of that you would see. It's like on the globe model. So in reality, what we see there, even though in that small picture, I'm looking at that on a very small screen, and that's a very small picture, and I can see the differences between the two. But the full differences will be way more bizarre, just for the audience. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I did attempt to go through that in terms of how Adam's using the roofie units to take a pixel value to then ignore all aspects of perspective and take the values from the advanced tab in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking earth curve calculator, which hopefully peppers it with enough disclaimers for anybody who's reasonably competent and been following along for a few days at the least to know what we're talking about.
I think maybe just for YouTube purposes then, this is a parody, just so people are clear. Not a claim by me.
Yes, exactly. Just in case anyone comes along and says, oh, right, actually Adam did a wonderful job. I can hear it now. It's Like, no, we're taking the piss out of how you're begging the question. Proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator has got a per pixel value of drop ascribed by an idiot, and this is how it would turn out. Now, it doesn't represent what the picture's showing. It doesn't have these drops in pixels, but these drops in pixels are one aspect of a whole formula that relies on an R value we've debunked. So none of these values are important at all, especially the feet and inches values of mountains. No offence, Brian, I get your point, and you did disclaim on a globe, so I'm not going to moan at you. But those feet and inches values don't change with distance now, do they? What's that? Oh, we'll look at the perspective values based on what it'll be on a flat plane, because that's the only way we can measure them. I mean, derive them from the picture. Yeah, what a crock of crap. This is dead on arrival like everything they present at the moment. Oh yeah, where's R? Let's just cut this off at the head. Where's R? The values you've told us for how many feet and inches or pixels of drop there's going to be, that's all based on R. We debunked it. So bye-bye. Every single claim that we're discussing here is all moot. Just a bit of fun to take the piss out of Roofy for being a thicko.
Yeah, unfortunately, you've got me. Without R, I couldn't have done the maths to figure out how much to bend it by a pre-assumed R value, which is what I had to do because I had to work out the amount.
Nathan, maybe for people who are just tuning in or haven't been paying attention to the show for years, what do you want to tell them why you call the calculator what you do? Just
Sure. Yeah, begging the question. Well, it assumes its outcome. It's in the title. It's called Earth Curve Calculator. Oh, so we're automatically going to assume we're on a sphere Earth then. So they're begging the question. Proof of nothing. It's a model. It's a side profile that you will never encounter. You never see the side of your own head. It proves nothing. Models aren't reality. Begging the question. Proof of nothing. Perspective hijacking. Because we've got a 1.2 measurement, 1.22 measurement, that claims that Earth's sphere edges will block based on geometry, and yet we've got a 1.22 measurement that's going to give us optical diffraction limits. Well, that's not coincidence. It's not a coincidence also that in the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator, they remove aspects of perspective by putting it into side profile, what we call Muppet vision, or orthographic view. That would be to say that you will see the side of your own head. Sometimes they draw an eyeball on the left-hand side of the page or a stick man on the left-hand side of the page, and then they tell you how that is representative of a photograph. Well, when you next see that audience member, ask yourself this. When have you ever seen the side of your own head for a 90-degree angle, potentially thousands of miles away, to you taking the picture? You don't. All that does is remove all aspects of perspective with feet and inches values for targets. So this 100-foot building will be 100 foot on the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator representation in orthographic view, with you on the left and a line drawn to you in a 100-foot building. Doesn't matter if it's a million miles between the two. It hijacks perspective and calls it Earth curve. So that's why it's got that title.
Well, you know what they say when you say that you're begging the question? They say, oh, we already know that it's a globe.
Yeah. In other words, the defense to you're automatically assuming your outcome is, no, I'm going to automatically assume my outcome. That's their defense. That's the magic trick. That's why we're indoctrinated into believing we're on a sphere from birth. So it's hardwired for anybody to beg the question. And for those of the people who are newbies that come here and go, well, we already know it's a sphere. No, that's a begging the question fallacy. You need to prove it. Well, we must have been able to have proven it. It's the way the world is. So obviously we've got proof for it. No, that's the reason we're here.
Yeah, and when you're talking to anti-flat earthers and they say they know it's a ball already, but you're asking them how they know, and then they're saying they know because they know, that's nonsensical.
Wait, it's begging the question.
Yet that's the reasoning that most people will have. That I've been told that, like, we know it's a ball because we know it's a ball. And I'm like, and that makes sense to you? And they're like, yeah, because we know. And how do you know you know? Oh, because we know.
Substitute in some particle. Substitute in unicorns. Unicorns are real. How do you know unicorns are real? Because I already know. Well, how do you already know? Because I already know. Everybody already knows. Adding an appeal to consensus. Everyone already knows unicorns are real.
No.
Well, are you a bit stupid that you don't know unicorns are real?
Hold on, the ancient Greeks knew it was a sphere thousands of years ago. Haven't you heard the news?
How'd they know?
But what did they observe?
Yeah, what did they measure?
Doesn't matter. It's the ancient
Oh,
Greeks.
that doesn't matter.
And why did Christopher Columbus miss the boat? Why'd he have to also find out thousands of
missed the
years
boat.
later?
That was good. You missed the boat.
Listen, the ancient Greeks said it. It's law. Don't you know that?
Law? What, they decide how nature behaves because they say it's so?
Yes, it's the ancient Greeks.
I see. With that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. If you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Massive thank you to you who smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either Premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day! Yeah. That's
So
what we taught in school.
what happened to all of this Greek knowledge then?
Oh, it only counts now. Back then, it didn't matter. But now it matters. You know, the Greeks knew it was a sphere. They've always known it was a sphere. Sphere's been out for years. It's a divine shape. Don't you know that? It's a
So,
divine shape.
Neil, are we saying that it was the Portuguese that were laughing at Columbus, so the Greeks are going, "Go on, son, you'll make it"?
The Greeks didn't know anything. They're just a bit more discreet.
Oh dear.
That's why at restaurants it says parking in the rear. That went over everybody's head.
Well, the Greeks also knew that Zeus was real and that little boy love was the best kind of love.
No need.
Well, it still floors me that anyone can hear the Black Swan argument and just totally not act as if something went drastically wrong that morning. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, oh, that's what it's saying. Oh, all right. But what about satellites though? But what about Jupiter and all the other spherical planets in the sky though? Like, the Black Swan should be it, honestly. I don't know. I don't get it.
I think it has.
Yeah, orbital mechanics dies without R.
Basically, you're saying how are they walking around like they did just get slapped in the face and just pretend everything normal when your whole radius and your whole paradigm just got taken away from you in 2 seconds.
The Greeks didn't think that it was balls in space, did they? They weren't linked with that. They didn't have a physicality assumption bias. They had a God character assumption bias. That was there. They're not describing it. They're not imagining it, the heavens being in any way how we would today. It's complete disconnect in terms of the two models. So I would question whether they would even view those as other planets, never mind therefore draw an inference that because they're round lights in the skies, we must be a round light in the sky. I don't think that would be their worldview.
That's a good point. Most because they'll say we've always known it was round. Look at the hieroglyphs. Look at all this. Look at this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but like they thought that those were like entities, not inanimate objects.
Well, they
They had
described
God.
them as planetas. They didn't even describe them as planets. So they described them as the wandering stars, hence where the name planet is derived from. So that tells you their viewpoint of them.
You know, Eli, you said the black swan, how people don't just get smacked in the face with it and come to reality. That's the thing that gets my son, though. That's the one that gets, he can't answer that. So he goes to saying, well, how do I know that picture's real?
Okay, I'm glad we segued back onto this. Exactly. I'm glad this came back up. Yeah, there's plenty of people in the comment section that display that sort of mentality, which is to say that they will semi-concede, yeah, we haven't got a geometric horizon, but you still can't prove it's flat. In other words, move on to the you've got to fill in the gaps now, like they used to do with space. Well, you can't prove the dome. It's like that's a tacit acceptance that we haven't got outer space as a vacuum. Or how do you know that there's not space beyond the dome? So you've got a tacit acceptance that there is going to be containment. Yeah, it's a necessity. But they start asking us questions that in so asking, demonstrating that they have accepted that, even if it's at a subconscious level. They don't realise they've accepted it by asking those questions. Well, then tell me what the dome is then. And if you don't, I'm just going to ignore it. Yeah? It's like, oh, well, that's up to you. That's your bag. So I do think there are people who do actually subconsciously understand this argument and the implications. It just causes them cognitive dissonance.
So no one in Discord, no baller, no anti-flat earther wants to come on the show.
Well, I was hoping that John would pipe up at that point, but he's just disappeared, which was to say that, you know, there was a crossroads that John reached when he got to the Black Swan argument and realised there was no physicality to measure to get R. You still got a choice at that point, right? He could have gone the other way and said, well, I'm just going to deny it because they haven't proven what it is, or they haven't got a map, or they haven't got a proof of a dome, or whatever else you want to say we haven't got to continue your path along denial and retention of globe faith. You know, he didn't have to take the route that he did, but he did. You're like, okay, well, that's the end of that argument then. If I can't measure it, how am I supposed to be on it?
Well, his field of work, he can't lie to himself. He needs measurements in his field of work, and he thought that that was measured. But when he found out it wasn't measured, because he had such a high view of what an actual measurement proves and doesn't prove, that's why he did the right thing.
Or you can just go the complete bonkers way, and as a glober, when asked by a flat earther, or stated by a flat earther, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, what is your response, Tough Man?
Say that again. I'm sorry, I was doing something else.
If the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, what's your response to that? If you're a glober that's just gone completely bonkers.
Glober. You want me to answer as a glober, or you want me to answer the way I
As
think
Ed.
you want?
Ed.
Oh, as Ed. Okay, irrelevant.
No, you can say that sounds like your claim, flat earther.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, they'll call it a straw man.
That sounds like your claim.
That sounds like your claim. Go ahead, Ed. Is he in here? Maybe we could ask him
Is he in
again.
here? Oh, wonderful.
I don't know if he is. I'm asking. Maybe we can ask him again, and he could tell us that.
I think
the Earth being a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles sounds like a flat earther's claim. I would love him to repeat that shit.
Who said that?
Ed.
Of all the ballers, he's ahead of his game. Come on.
He's the head of this.
Hey, he's been gone for a while.
Or anybody else. I mean, does anybody else agree with that? Any globe believer think that that's our claim, or does that sound like your claim?
You know, I could go to just
funny,
real quick. I can go to any normie I want and talk about the black swan. The one thing that is curious is when they say, "Oh, I've seen this floating around the internet. That's been debunked." It's like, oh, really? Okay, so explain what the argument is. And then they'll say something like, "Well, you can see the oil rigs," or something like that. And it's like, when you really f them up, like if you ask them, "So, okay, hold on, do you know what modus tollens is?" Like, from right there, the rug is coming from up from underneath them. You know what I mean? Like the modus tollens.
That whole
What is
response, Eli, is kind of like, oh, no, I don't need to worry about that. Somebody smarter than me's looked at it and says it's fine.
Yep.
It's just a
Yeah.
blanket.
I was just gonna say it's like a warm blanket that my daddy and mommy put around me, and I don't have to worry about what your little picture is showing us. I don't have to worry about that. It debunks this radius that I believe in, because you know what? I can see the oil rigs.
Well, you can ask them
Jeez,
if they agree with the form of logic. If P then Q, not Q, therefore P, and then they go, "Well, okay, it makes sense." And then you'll say, "Well, do you know that if the radius is 3,959 miles, then the horizon is 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height feet?" And they might go, how'd you come up with that? And then you can say, "Well, me as a flat earther didn't come up with that. That's just what it is. Look at this PDF here. Look at this paper with Andrew Thomas Young's name on it. Like, look at this is just what it is. So I didn't come up with it. This is just
Yeah,
what's
tell them
agreed upon."
it's their
And they're
shit.
like, "Okay, so that's where the horizon is. Okay, fair enough. Fine. Okay, yeah. Okay, based on this math or whatever, that's where the horizon is." And then you show them, "Okay, well, look at this observation off the coast of California. See the horizon? See, it's beyond the geometric restraints of the globe that we're supposedly living on." And what do you do after that? You lie like a
Eli,
rug is what you do if you're religious.
Well,
Eli, when they say, "Where'd you get it from?" Just say, "Okay, let me ask you, is 2 and 2 plus 4? It's 2 and 2 plus 4, Eli."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wrong.
okay.
5.
That's the math, right? So the math for the geometry is 1.22. That is the limitations ascribed to that. It has to work that way. It's just like 2 and 2 plus 4. So you're not going to argue with it because it's just the math of the curvature that has to start there. The edge has to start there.
The problem is getting them to understand it's their own math. It's their own model that's giving us this math.
Yeah,
Well,
but
it's
everything
not.
A lot
relies
of
on
times
that.
they'll say, "Oh, this is some shit you flat earthers made up." It's like, no.
Hang on. The math is the math. The model is theirs. The math is universal. The math has to work.
Hold on.
exactly.
Can I step in? Can I step in? Again, this can be solved with a distinction between anti-flat earthers who say, "What's that you say? Earth a sphere radius 3959? That's just some crap flat earthers made up." No, it's the globe claim. So a globe believer claims Earth's a sphere radius 3959, and the globe claimant has maths that says that every distance to horizon can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That is the physical geometry of a sphere radius 3959. That's a glober's claim. What's that you say, person debating me a flat earther? We don't claim that. It's a straw man. Yeah, that's an anti-flat earther who would say that.
Oh my God, my son's an anti-flat earther. He's gone from baller to anti-flat earther. Now what the freak do I do?
It's okay, Neil, because what Eli's talking about there is the type of person Eli's talking about would be the type of person, the normal person you meet, and they're just globe loyal. Okay, they're blind loyalty, global loyal, you could call them. They don't know anything about the model. All they know is they were told that it was a globe, and they're loyal to that. Whereas you have the actual globers, like, you know, who follow the rhetoric. Then you have anti-flat earthers, who we deal with a lot of the time. But then you have another group that come after the anti-flat earthers. They think they're still anti-flat earthers, but they're actually secretly flat curious, and they actually start answering a few questions. When you're asked after a while, there's a few of them that are starting to do that. I actually think that Ruhif is secretly flat curious, but he doesn't want to accept it.
I don't care either way, but I do care about how previously Brian has drawn a conclusion about globiolus. Now, what was globiolus? Well, it's the claim of an anti-flat earther now, isn't it? Coriolis would be something that a globe believer would claim. Earth turns beneath as a non-inertial turning reference frame to give you 15 degrees of drift as you turn beneath things not attached. That's the claim a glober should make if they understand what Coriolis is, which most of them don't. However, that's the claim. What's a globiolus claim, Brian? Definitely not a globe claim, right?
No, absolutely not. It's a complete contradiction that involves non-reality. It's nothing to do with the Coriolis effect.
Conservation of momentum. Conservation of momentum, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's the conservation of momentum, which would take away all visual Coriolis effect. You wouldn't see the Coriolis effect due to the conservation of momentum.
Right. We wouldn't see the claim of Coriolis, the thing that's supposed to prove we spin, because of my anti-flat Earth position of globiolus effect, something that is the antithesis of seeing drift and the reason why we don't see drift when you point out that we don't see drift, as the globe claims we should. So, bearing all that in mind, conservation of momentum was a justification with its very specific and detailed explanation by anti-flat earthers to globe proponents? No, of course not. To us, the flat earthers, like we claim that we've got reference frames. Meanwhile, that explanation of conservation of momentum was claimed by Ruhif to be the justification for George Netanyahu getting in touch with Brian Mullen's license supplier. He said he completely agreed with the sentiment of getting in touch with this man because lives would be at risk, based on his misapprehensions about, quote, the conservation of momentum. Now, what Brian actually took apart was Coriolis effect, the claim we've got two reference frames to cause drift. Now, what these bastards do is they superimpose their globiolus effect on top and how that shouldn't give you drift. And because he hasn't understood how we shouldn't have the 15 degrees an hour drift as claimed by the globe, he needs his employer contacting. Now, bearing in mind that he needs his employer contacting because of his lack of comprehension of globiolus conservation of momentum, as claimed by Ruhif very specifically. The same man who says that definitions of words don't matter. They only matter when you're going to go after a flat earther's career. Then it's very important that this man understands the conservation of momentum, because he's perfectly in line with the sentiment that George Netanyahu can go after a man who doesn't understand the conservation of momentum, even though that's not a claim he's detailing or taking apart. He's taking apart Coriolis effect, something very different. But that's enough for them to go after his career, based on the meaning of conservation of momentum, that apparently when it's flat earthers detailing this effect of any other thing that doesn't have anything to do with Coriolis, and they're proven to be correct, their definitions don't have any meaning or matter. Yeah, it matters when you're going to go after a man's career, though, doesn't it, Ruhif, you total bastard? Yeah? Like George, you're in cognitive pain and you want to express that pain onto another man, and hopefully ruin another man's career because you're in cognitive pain about your reality not being a sky vacuum, or it's not having Coriolis effect, sod all to do with conserving momentum, and everything to do with observing things drift as you turn beneath them. But you, Ruhif, obviously are either thick and don't understand what the Coriolis effect is, or you're just in line with understanding meanings and definitions when another man's career is going to be had by one of your bastard compadres. Yeah, it's all right to know the meanings of words when you're going to go after another man's career now, isn't it, Ruhif? It's because you're a fucker. That's what you are, Ruhif. I'll trim this out so you can all hear it. Ruhif's just a cunt. Doesn't deserve the air we're breathing. A cunt. That's what that man is. Go after another man's... Oh, I'm all in line with that. Oh, I'm perfectly happy with George going after Brian's career. Lives are at stake because he doesn't understand the conservation of momentum. It's very important we understand meanings. Meanwhile, meanings don't matter when it comes to words. They're unimportant. Unless I'm going after another man's career. Because I'm a cunt. Right, Ruhif, you cunt? That's what you are. Accept it.
Agreed.
Couldn't agree more. And throw George in that motherfucker too. Piece of shit.
George is a bitter old man who will soon die. Yeah, George, you're hearing this. You'll just be dead soon. You're very old. So I couldn't give a crap about that bitter old bastard.
I thought this wasn't anything, guys. I thought you had nothing to worry about. Why would you go after somebody's career? Why don't you just sit back and laugh? But it made you so nervous that you had to go after Brian Mullen, huh?
Because it's all about pride, Chocolate. Their pride is hurt. They're wrong.
It made them nervous. That's what it was, man.
They're wrong.
Because he was like, "Oh, we can't let this guy's message get out to too many people. He might fuck our whole shit up. We gotta put a stop to this."
You see the difference when Nathan was humble enough to say, you know what, I'll take the L on that, because you're right. These guys can't do that, Chocolate. They cannot do that.
What they had to do was the oldest attack they have on us, which is character assassinate Brian Mullen. And they were still at it with Ruif on Bev's show. They were still at it on Try Thinking, because it's make it out that the man was incompetent, that the man was of bad character, is of low grade, and that's what they always do. And that's the only argument they actually have, because you can't prove something that doesn't exist. The globe does not exist. They can't prove it. So all they can do is character assassinate anyone who starts pointing it out. And that's all they do. And that was just more. What you heard Ruif do was just more of the same. Oh, he's causing a danger, right? What danger is he causing? He's causing a danger by not understanding the conservation of angular momentum. He's causing a danger because he doesn't fall in line with your fundamental rubbish that you choose to believe in. He's only causing a danger to your belief. He's not causing danger to structures or bridges or roads. It's complete and utter rubbish.
He made no videos about the conservation of momentum. He made videos about Coriolis deflection that we're supposed to see on a globe. In line with the globe's claims, he took them apart, and they didn't like that. They said, no, you should understand that when observing drift as you turn beneath things, I'm going to account for them violating that drift, even though it's a drift that isn't actual in the first place. It's not actual drift, but I'm going to tell you that the plane's conserving momentum. What's that got to do with not actual drift? Absolutely nothing. It's a bastardization of Coriolis effect, which is what Brian took apart. And they're saying, because you don't understand my bastardization get-around of the fact we don't have drift to prove we spin, means I'm going to have your career. That's what they've done.
It's much like what the politicians do all the time. Let me give you an example. Hillary Clinton was going around making $3 million plus, giving several speeches. I think she was getting paid over $200,000 per speech, and she'd have a public position on something, and she'd have a private position on something. So in one argument, she'd say, "Oh, I'm for open borders," and when that's to the bankers and the conglomerates, that when she was speaking, that's the private. And then in the public, "Oh, we need to control our borders." So the ballers are like politicians. They know how to lie.
Yeah, that's correct. Their lie is full of pride.
I'm completely with Nathan, though. The carry on and the fact that it's so condoned, it's totally condoned for people to go after other people's livelihoods because they disagree with what they have to say. That's totally condoned on their side. By real
because they disagree. It's because they're scared. Yeah.
I know. That's why I said it. That was nervousness on George's part for doing that. Absolutely scared.
To do scummy things.
What are they scared of, Adam?
They're scared of the truth, the reality, aren't they? And Nathan knows this, but it was never announced. But a couple of years ago, they tried to blackmail me, tell me that if I didn't leave Flat Earth, they were gonna. Well, actually, they wrote to my wife claiming that I was in the Flat Earth tour was a weird sex cult. It was a sex bus.
What?
They were going to ruin me. They were going to write to the Pharmaceutical Society and also write to my fellow directors and all these things. So they put all sorts of threats. But if I was not seen on air after this certain date, then they'd assume I'd taken their advice and got out of this crazy cult, and they'd leave me alone.
Sound like a bunch of bitch-made assholes. Sorry.
Why would they do that? Because
Intimidation
they're scared.
technique
Look at
to
the
try and
tactics.
prevent
Look
other
at it.
people.
What's
It's
the
more
demand?
George Netanukes.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Whoever it was called the something society in London, because I passed the papers on to the police because basically it was blackmail. They weren't arsed, but it was some Babylon society in London. It was linked to or something like that. The name on the paper, but that was sent to my wife at home.
Wow, bro.
Wow, they picked the wrong guy.
Man,
That's for
listen.
sure. They picked the
But did
wrong
they have
guy.
any evidence to present? I mean, were you photographed with one of these members or something by accident, or was it just a blank accusation?
What the way they did it was very clever. Could you imagine the headlines tomorrow? And then they did all sorts of fake news articles. Local pharmacist caught in sex and drugs caravan, all these sorts of really weird and some very horrible accusations about other people on the tour. Really disgusting things. It was all stuff like that, and it's a drug-fueled binge. And just basically telling my wife that it was a sex cult, and that's why I was really interested in it. Sex cult from my shed, you know what I mean? So, but the reason they do it is because why? What did they want? They wanted me to stop speaking and discussing this. That was their motive. Well, why would you want to not discuss things honestly?
I'll tell you why. Well, it's not that they want you to stop speaking. They want you to stop being against consensus. You not being part of the consensus ruins it for them.
You know what I think is going on? I think that they were actually interested in the disgusting sex cult, and they were just projecting it onto you. So they thought, oh,
yes, that's absolutely correct. Also, most of these things come from the imagination of a person. Therefore, it's going to be that person's imagination that they're projecting onto Adam in this instance. That's correct, Darwin.
Well, if we did have some crazy sex caravan stuff going on, we might get more members.
I'd let you know, Brian, the next time you know what I mean? It's
If that's the case, it totally passed me by.
Again, I'm going to have to use Neil as an example. You know, earlier when you were saying, where's this going to go from here, Neil? Yeah? Well,
Yes,
that's down
I
to
think
the
it was good.
individual and how they feel about it. In your case, I'm saying, well, just nothing's changing outside your window. Don't worry about it. Just get on with your life. Be happy. Don't worry. Well, where does it go? Well, that depends on whose eyes you're looking through. For these people, well, this is the end of the world for them, to the point where they'll go after people's jobs, careers, livelihoods. They'll go after them eventually if they feel strongly enough about it. Why? Well, because we're saying something that's not in line with their consensus opinion. So that's their problem. And how far they push that is down to them. Now, we've already done a show about what this is. It's targeted harassment by them on us. And I've said this before as well. There is only so much that society will tolerate in that regard. There will be something that's the straw that breaks the camel's back, future tense. It's going to happen. Society won't tolerate this disgusting, abhorrent behaviour from our anti-flat earth compadres on YouTube or anywhere else. It won't be tolerated forever, I assure you of that. Society doesn't like disgusting things. And the more they are currently tolerated, the more they will become disgusting and abhorrent, as we are seeing. Because they can get away with it, to a point. Society has standards, and they are way below those standards currently already.
Right. Demonic
Or until one
behavior
of y'all
is a
gets
slippery
fucked
slope.
up.
It always slips you down. If nobody stops you from slipping down into that disgusting behavior, if you're not stopped actively, you will slip further down. It always happens.
Yeah. If you're paying attention to the propaganda, you might get involved in it in a way that is detrimental to you and your well-being. Likewise, the scummy anti-flat earthers you can get involved with, they're pigs. Well, if you wrestle with pigs, you're going to get dirty and the pig's going to enjoy it.
I was only saying it to my friend yesterday. He was slagging me off, because he's a baller. And I was only saying to him that flat earthers are the only people that you can publicly attack in a personal manner and insult them, whatever else. And people will just join in with you and laugh. Whereas you can't do that with other, let's say, what they call communities. And I said to him, it's only a matter of time before I'm able to report you. I said to him, he said, you could be onto something there, he said.
That's great. That's perfect. I love it.
I think we made the point, Nathan, a while back that if other groups were discussed like us, we went with transsexuals or something, but yeah, if we were discussed that those sorts of people shouldn't be allowed to breed, you know what I mean? They should be ignored. They're morons, and discussed with the verve and nastiness that we're described as, not even nastiness, vileness. Yeah, that it would be identified as hate speech. It would be, which is what it is. It's just now, as you say, for some reason, it's laughable still. Do you
want to know why? We're not a protected group. That's why. All the groups you mentioned in that list are protected groups. We're not one of them.
It shows the hypocrisy of society. It shows how the hypocrisy of society. How it's okay to laugh at us, but it's not okay to laugh at some other group. Now, we don't see us as a group because, no matter what your preference is, no matter where you come from, no matter what your skin color is, this is about the world we live on. So we're not a group, it's about the truth. So I don't really want to be, I don't want to have a situation where people are told they're not allowed to get onto flat earthers because that's unfair or whatever. I don't want that. I like that.
But that's the difference, right? Because all those groups, as hated as they might be by different other groups, all those groups, they all believe they live on a ball. So they all have that commonality, right? The only thing that makes us different is that we don't.
Well, also the problem is whatever we say falls flat on deaf ears, no matter what.
Well, why don't ballers haunt concavers like they do flat earthers? Because concavers believe in a ball. That's why.
Or hollow earthers.
So Brian's right. In terms of
But
me
hollow
not wanting
earthers,
society to necessarily change at a fundamental level where people have some rights taken away. No, that's not what I mean. What I do mean is there are certain, let's say, private entities like YouTube that have rules. Yeah? I know those rules, and I already know that a lot of people we deal with on the anti-flat earth side of this argument are well in breach of those rules. Now, that can only sustain itself for a certain amount of time before something happens about it. It's the same with anything else on YouTube. Eventually, something happens about it because they don't want to be brought into disrepute because of anti-flat earth or flat earth. Now, they've already dealt with flat earth and the minority group has taken over. The minority group has filled the gap where we were several years ago. Well, does that mean that they're not going to be subject to any sanctions if they're in violation of the rules? No. YouTube doesn't give a crap about us or anti-flat earth or globe earth at all. They've got their guidelines and they want to adhere by them, so they haven't got the FCC or anybody else on their case. That's all they care about. Making their, or bringing in their, whatever it was last year, 16 billion, I think it was, they bought in. No idea what their profits are, and neither does anybody. But they bought in an absolute shed ton of money. Well, that's what they're going to be concerned with, first and foremost. Why do you think the advertising purge happened? Not because they were deeply concerned about some crazy cult content that's out there. Not at all. Far from it. Just, are the advertisers happy or not? That's all they're concerned about. And so be it. They are a business, right? So they've got to have rules and regulations to function as a business. Well, they don't care at a societal level. It's like when people babble on about free speech here. Oh, get out of here with your free speech. Where do you think you are? You're on YouTube. Those rights don't apply here. What are you talking about?
I have a right not to be muted on your show, Nathan. I have a right not to be muted on your show. I have a right not to be muted on your show. Just kidding.
They care enough that like all these, I don't know, I was using it. It's an example that I use to a lot of people at my job. I say, look, I'm a nobody, right? I'm just some random guy on the internet, and I decided to make a couple of songs about flat Earth, and even my little nobody ass gets a little description attached to my video saying this is about flat Earth, this archaic model, pay it no mind, right? But you've got all these other videos, right? You got plenty of videos of all the rappers and all the women and just running around titties and ass all over the place. They don't have a description, they don't have a link, they don't have even a parental advisory. But I need one. The little nobody with like 300 subs, and I need a description attached to all my videos, well, my 3 videos, to tell everyone that this is an archaic model this guy in particular is talking about.
But I know why, Chocolate. It's because you are a flat earther that does rap, and they are rappers that did a flat earth song. So
yeah, but they're not doing
makes sense, right?
That's the whole point. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm a nobody, but I need one of those things attached to my video.
Well, it's because your song is actually really good, and if you're not prepared to hear some flat earth things, then you'll be like, whoa, this is a good song, and you'll be, oh my god, you might get in the way of their careful programming. You might accidentally, subconsciously undo some programming in people. So it's very dangerous, so they need to warn everybody.
I agree, Chocolate. While you're trying to make your point whilst being a little bit self-deprecating, Arwen's point is to say, well, you're saying you're nobody, and actually no. While you're pointing that out to your mate, you're doing it by way of irony to say, if I point out or postulate that we're the same level and we're not going to make any influence on the world around us, right? We're just nobodies. But yet I've got a little tag that's telling you to not pay attention to me. Hello? Why would that be?
Yeah, because this nobody's message can't get out to everybody. Because maybe he's more.
No, it's because your rap is really good. That's why.
So your tag
but
is
if
your
I was,
badge of
yeah,
honor.
but there's a bunch of raps out there that, you know, a bunch of people making songs about all types of other stuff. None of them have the same type of link or description to Wikipedia about flat Earth, right? They don't, not even a parental advisory. I even put, I just like twice in my song, and I put like a parental advisory thing on my thing. Just, and I cursed twice.
If you're Joe Newby, right?
No.
Hold on, Adam. Go ahead, Arwen. Say once more that
I just wanted to ask, how original are their songs compared to yours? I've never heard a flat Earth rap song like that.
Thank you, Arwen.
I hear plenty of other songs about anything.
Arwen, you're sidelining the point. Okay, let's just all agree with Arwen, right? Yeah, it's because it's cracking music and the mainstream haven't got a touch on Chocolate. Okay, can we move past that? Because it's a tangent to the point Chocolate's making.
Just say, with the tramp stamp, and I say, woohoo, thank you very much. You highlight me. Now, if I'm Joe Newby, or just what does that say to me? Do you do like normally click and go, oh shit, flat Earth, quick, get off, parental guidance, and go off it? Or to me, it just says, why are they? As my wife says, it opens up an inquisitiveness. Well, to me, it is an advert. It's saying, have a look at this. It upsets us.
Yeah, and I've got that from some of the people that I've shown.
If I can add to that, I think it's when you look at who you're not allowed to criticize, and then you run into this, it usually means that you are right over the target. You are zoning in on something. So you're becoming a bit dangerous.
Wait.
Sorry. Sheesh, no, but I'm serious. I think that Chocolate songs, the psychology of it, it's so good, it's so psychological. No, I will do my say about it. Stop complaining. Okay, it's a very good song, and it doesn't just apply to flat Earth. And I've been saying that forever. The psychology of what we're going through echoes on in other formats around the world. And that's why it hits so hard, especially to somebody that hasn't heard it before.
You talking about... Yeah, are you talking about why would they lie?
Why would they lie?
Yes.
That and other
Is
hits.
that the one? Yeah. Yeah.
What is the world? That's my favourite.
I preferred your segue, but you're very gracious of you to give way to Arwin. But yes, you're right over the target when you're getting flack. Correct. That's flack. The tramp stamp's just flack.
And Ariel, I think it was Ariel, right? Who said, that raises a curiosity. It does. It does, because I have people saying to me like, well, the people in my life, like in my job or whatever, and they'll be like, wow, that is kind of crazy. Because, I could look up this other video that's called WAP, right? We all know what that stands for. That no signs, no links, no nothing. But you get one? That's a little weird. I'm like, yep.
It's a pretty cool thing to show off, though.
So I mean, sometimes the censorship does backfire, because I have had people say, well, it's a little weird that they take all this stuff off. Why do they attack you guys so much? I've had people. One of my old supervisor told me that. I was like, that is very weird. I find it, because I've been looking into it since I've been talking to you, and now I'm seeing that they censor you guys very much, and that's weird. Why would they do that if what you guys were saying was just nonsense? There's so much other nonsense that's not being censored. It almost makes this nonsense seem like it's not. I'm like, exactly.
Right, and they'll have bigger channels and more viewers and more positive comments and very controversial subjects, but just not as relevant and up to date as yours, right? So though they why would they get a flag? Who cares?
Yeah. No wiki entry underneath saying Wikipedia says that ghosts aren't real and they're just an imaginary. None of that. Not required, right?
Nope.
UFOs have never been shown. It's just something that man only started to experience in the early turn of the 19th century. Yeah, but there was no other point. They don't give these warnings. It's a non-archaic thing that we haven't had in the past. It's only stuff we've recently started to hallucinate now and reify. You know what I mean? It's
that's going to be an interesting one. How's that going to overlap, Adam? As we've discussed this before, right? So, back in the day, let's say 70s, before I was born, you were put into the local rags if you were talking about aliens or little green men. You were a kook, and you were ridiculed for being a kook, correct? Fast forward to now, and will it be the case that will become part of a magic trick that's surrounded or centered on heliocentrism, and therefore become tramp stampable? In other words, you're not allowed to tell people aliens aren't real. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to not tell them they're real now. You know what I mean? It takes a total 180 degrees. Then again, why am I even saying this? We're not at war with Oceania after all, are we? What am I saying? Why am I even shocked?
Right. From a square to a circle. And there's another word for that, by the way.
Nathan, don't start with the ghost again.
Well, it would make sense as to why all of a sudden there's all disclosure and, it's been confirmed that the military's been looking into UFOs. Like that type of narrative has been ramping up a whole lot lately. I've been hearing a lot of that crap. And it's like, you guys are just trying to make this normal right now? Why? Why right now? What's going on?
Yeah, back a few years ago, back in 2008, my friend and myself used to watch the sky a lot and different things like that. And we had a lot of interest in that. We always kind of had when we were younger. Like everyone, it's like, what are UFOs, or is there aliens, blah, blah, blah. And we scoured the internet, and it was always these, not shady, but kind of secretive channels that you get some information off, and there's always a possible whistleblower, but it all has to be kept hush-hush because the authorities have shut it down, and it was all a big deal, and there was no mainstream stuff kind of going on. It was all like any information you wanted to find out, like it was like You have to kind of dig deep to find anything proper out, and this kind of stuff. And now it's just like they're trying to put it on the news. They can't stop showing you TikTok videos of UFOs, and it's like they just won't stop with it. Why has it ramped up in the past 6 years?
Well,
Sorry,
it's beautifully heliocentric, isn't it? It's a lot cheaper too.
No, because
my bad, middle of answering. So, yeah, it's because it's beautifully heliocentric for the first part. It's also a lot cheaper. So if you're going to say we're sending out this $50 billion firework in small scale to the sky vacuum, watch, isn't it amazing? That proves space is real. Isn't it much easier to have them come in our way? Far easier and cheaper, right?
Can I talk now? I'm a little tired of this being corrected.
Well, I'm not in the
Anyway.
middle of a sentence. Yeah, sure.
Anyway, listen, this is the great deception. Aliens. That's what it's going to be. Lucifer's in charge of the sky. It's going to be a great deception that's going to deceive many. It's going to be this alien encounter. So now they're promoting it. Now you see it on Fox News and everywhere else.
Okay, that is actually what's happening, Neil. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it's not like it's generational mind control tactic to where they switch, right, the narratives all the time, right? Like when Nathan was in the 70s, you're a kook. If you believe in these aliens, you're a straight kook. Now, it's just totally normalized. It's a buzzword. It's on nightly news. The propaganda is so thick, it's hard to avoid. And the narrative is like totally 180, you know?
Yeah, which
From
means
a
that,
square to a circle.
I haven't heard you in a while.
yeah,
Brother.
which means for Arwin or Neil, you might end up going the other way 30 years from now, where suddenly you're a kook if you're a heliocentrist, and it was always considered flat. We've always known that. Didn't everybody already know? That's easily what they can do. When people describe the Mandela effect, what they describe in conspiracy realm is just nonsense when they're talking about bloody silver and gold legs and stuff. That's all crap. Standard practice narrative in terms of Mandela effect is things like we've talked about on this show, right? The Richard Branson endeavour. Well, that's a narrative that comes and goes. 1 minute we're going to space, public are going to get there. Next minute it's not part of the narrative anymore. 10 years later it's part of the narrative again. We're going to be going to space. Same with aliens. 1 minute there's no aliens and we're all stupid if we think there is. But yeah, it's been put out there by the government and they're hushing it up and there's little bits of leaked info. It's like, okay. And then, no, it's definitely real. It's mathematical certainty and there are aliens and yeah, there are people spotting them and we're going to have to do some disclosure about it. Like, oh yeah, really? But that's all the same propaganda. It's just they flip the coin and decide that they're going to flip the script on whoever's listening to the script. But if you're not in the theatre, it doesn't matter to you. You've got to be in the theatre to go, oh, they've changed the script halfway through the play. Yeah, but if you're not in the theatre, it doesn't matter, does it?
Well, I think we're all in this theater,
know-
Nathan.
you know-
Hold on 1 second, Chocolate. I think we're all in this theater because I think that's going to be the great deception. I mean, we're all-
Right, and that is what the guy Rees-Mogg said, isn't it? All the world's a stage now, isn't it? Yeah, correct.
No, but I mean eternally wise, because you could take it into a spiritual realm now. And if you look in the Bible, these are all things that are happening, escalating to the end times.
Now, why'd you have to hijack it into the biblical point? Yes, you've already said that. But Rees-Mogg said exactly your point a moment ago. I think we are all part of the stage. I led you beautifully, just accept it. Yeah, and Rees-Mogg said exactly that, didn't he, when declaring it to the British Parliament? Well, all the world's a stage, Madam Speaker.
And out there is even a bigger stage.
I remember a couple of years ago, there was a man, an Englishman, called John Searle. I think he was an engineer. And he was being shut down. It was very hard to find these videos. And this is before all the censorship happened with YouTube for many things. He was being shut down. These videos were being taken off of YouTube. I know back in 2008 kind of time, 2007, 2008, even maybe slightly before that. And what he was showing was anti-gravity, right? Really what he was using was electrostatics and stuff like that, I think, or electricity. magnetism, but it was showing anti-gravity. But now, right, they didn't want that then because it showed gravity could be overcome, which would lead the public to asking questions, number one. But now, number two, they'll try and pump out these things, these anti-gravity, right? Because it gives validity to gravity, because they're desperate. So now they're willing to pump out these. They'll be on Netflix. You know, you can see an hour long documentary about anti-gravity machines on Netflix, whereas they didn't want to show you 4 minutes of a video on YouTube back in 2008.
Meanwhile, the obvious debunking is assigned to Cletus in Simpsons. So did you see where I trimmed out Cletus hugging Homer and saying, "Oh, if it isn't my bestest man on the whole of God's flat Earth"? Do you see that clip?
Yeah,
I didn't see it. No.
I saw it.
Okay, what's Cletus standing by? He's at a stall. What's he jump over?
I saw it, but I don't recall.
No, yeah, it's pretty key. That's why I put it in.
Figure a globe.
Anybody can remember while my kid's in the background screaming and I need to buy some time?
I saw it, but I don't remember. Anybody else see it?
An edge.
He's standing behind a stall selling helium balloons, and the sign says "Balls What Float" on the sign. That's what it says. Balls What Float, and it's helium balloons that he's selling. And he jumps over and tells Homer he's the best man on God's flat Earth. So you're talking about anti-grav machines. Okay, yeah, presumably these are super cooled to near zero. That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, they were anti-gravity, you know.
You sure? But in reality, things go up. They just do. Things do go up. Everything goes down. There's not a force of down. And Cletus is the one holding balls what float, because gas goes down like bouncy balls, doesn't it? But yet Cletus is holding balls what float and congratulating Homer on being the best man on God's flat Earth. Yeah, that says it all.
Yeah, very good. What was taboo in the past, since I'm 62, is okay now. And what was okay in the past is taboo now.
Oh yeah, stay away from the scriptures and quote The Simpsons. I agree with that 100%.
Or be an alpha. Be your own man. Don't care what the consensus says. In other words, if tomorrow they turned around and someone started saying, they flipped the script and started saying it is actually flat now and that we knew all along and that you're a stupid idiot if you didn't realise it already, I'd go, I don't care. Just like I don't care about NASA. I'd be like, all right. And should I now concern myself about the nonsense that will come along with their version of a flat reality? Because it will be riddled with nonsense that's designed to control you. But what, happy joy, the people who controlled us and lied about a globe are now controlling us and telling us it's flat? Oh, well, happy days. I'll rejoice because that'll affect me how? It'll affect me if I pay attention to that shit and have it rule my life. So, yeah, don't worry about it if they flip the script, Neil. When you're worrying about it, if I was to tell you at the beginning of the show, oh, yeah, I found out from a government insider that they're going to announce it on news like they announced about aliens, that they're actually coming from beyond the flat plane. And they're just going to drop it in subtly. And over the next year, the plan is to just drop it in more and more times until eventually they'll start ridiculing globers. And they'll just completely flip the script like in 1984 when the guy tells him that the stars could be close or far. Just depends on what the mathematicians want them to be. They're just going to do that. And I'll go, oh, right. But the problem is that they started to tell people about this, that, and the other that's nonsense, and that that's nonsense, and this that you're going to be controlled with, and that that's propaganda. And I'll be like, oh, yeah. So does it really matter that they've been honest about the flat bit now? Who cares? Same piss in a different bottle, saying it's flat, saying it's a globe. They're the propaganda peddlers. They're the people in control. And they make it plain that that's what they are. They just give you this illusion that you're putting them there.
I agree with you, Nathan. I just need you to hopefully clarify the people, because some people, and maybe more than some, might think you're saying be a stork, put your head in the ground, and run away. But that's not what you're saying. What you're saying is be your own man, question everything, And don't let the consensus rule your day, because they're the ones who have propped up the stage with all this crap coming, and you're not going to let it affect your life. But it's not as if you're blind to what they're doing.
Yeah. You know thy enemy if you want to see him in that way. But me, I just see them as some psychopath I never need to have any contact with ever again, ever. And therefore I won't. And it's like, yeah, but the psychopath's now punting the story that you like. Well, that's nice. Isn't that convenient? If there was enough of us that were converted in, the people who come here and say, where's this going, etc., etc. It's like, if there was enough people converted to the belief that it was flat, I'm going to put it in those terms, belief. Not because I know it's not, or because I know it is. I'm just saying, if enough people had that viewpoint, there you go, then they'd just change the viewpoint for the rhetoric to suit the majority of people. Because otherwise they'd lose control of them all. Because they'd just be part of the rhetoric that wasn't in line with the consensus. And they just want to be in line with consensus because that's what they're looking to control, the consensus. So if the consensus was flat, then that's what the world would be then, Neil. So if that's all you're concerned with, that everyone's in agreement with you when you've recognised the reality that you're actually living in, then that, to me, and I'm not saying it is a problem, but to me, if I felt that way, I'd feel like I'd got a problem. Why am I so concerned about everyone else being in line with what I feel? I mean, do I care? Not really. Honestly, I don't. So.
That's not the way I was going. I was going to spiritual level. Because I was saying, what would have to... In the end times, there's going to be a great falling away with the church. And how many people would fall away if they proved that they were aliens? A lot, believe me. A lot of people that are Bible believers would run the other way and turn their back if they proved that there was aliens and life on other planets that we know don't exist. That's what I was talking about.
Well, then they didn't have faith to begin with, if that was the case, Neil. But with that, I am going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for putting up with the strong language, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and all that good stuff. Also, below this video, you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!